Well, good evening, Hawkeye Nation. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Corey Bratta here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Feels like it's been a long time since we've done one of these live call-in shows that is wide open. Now we do have a couple things that we're going to get to this evening that's somewhat scheduled, somewhat scripted, uh, etc. But for the most part, the next 2 hours, we're here from 6 p.m. Central Time to 8 p.m. We're here to talk to you. Hopefully provide some insight into what I know uh, on the Iowa football front. And look, I'm to tell you right off the front, I'm not breaking any news to anybody this evening. Okay. Um, because I don't have any news to break. But hopefully it can provide you with some insight into what I do know. And certainly there's only a few people that know exactly what's going to happen. I think there's a chance you could honestly make the argument that nobody at this point knows exactly what's going to happen. We can talk about why that is. And of course, we're talking about staff changes. We're talking about the offense. We're talking about Brian Ferentz. We're talking about just the situation, just the future of Iowa football. And certainly staff changes are happening across the country. We're seeing coordinators across the country taking other jobs, getting fired. We've seen Iowa State make changes. We've seen Arkansas, TCU forced to make a change as their OC jumps over to Clemson after Clemson makes a change. I mean, you've done the list. I mean, we're just scratching the surface by talking about those teams. But some examples of some high major programs that have made changes. Of course, we know the storylines with Wisconsin, Nebraska, Purdue. Now with Jeff Brom gone, they're entering a new era of football. This is a very, very important time period, very important offseason for Iowa football. And you may say, well, obviously you're here to state the obvious. Well, in a way, I guess that's true. But just really think about it. It's not just a matter of, yes, this is we've seen 2 straight years of the offense being as bad as it's ever been. But now you add on to the fact that in another year, we've got UCLA and USC joining the conference. We've got divisions likely going away, or at least looking a lot different starting in 2024. 2023, this is a very important year. And I think I've made it very clear on this show how I feel, what needs to happen as it relates to the future on offense and the Iowa staff. I think I don't know how you get around the fact that there needs to be staff changes. I've been very clear on that stance. But we are sitting here on the 20th day of January here, 2023, and there has not yet been anything from Iowa as it relates to staff changes. None. Not at any position. That does not mean that there will not be, but at this point, there has not been anything from Iowa on staff changes. And that's naturally going to make people nervous when you see other schools across the country making moves and people flying off the big boards, if you will. So we're here to talk about it. The number to call in. First of all, I want to tell you about the link. If you want to call in by StreamYard, it's free to do that. You'll have to sign in by Facebook or YouTube. But of course, that's your private information. That's just so you can sign in and be a part of the show via StreamYard. If you haven't done that before, it's very simple. I threw the link up in the chat. It's also in the description of this stream. So you see where it says join the show. You just click on that little link and you'll enter the StreamYard studio. You don't have to have your video on if you don't want to. We'd love to chat with you face-to-face. But if you want to call in by means of StreamYard and have your video off and we'll just hear your voice just like you were on the phone, that's fine as well. The advantage of calling in by means of StreamYard and doing so in that fashion is that you don't have to try to get ahead. We've only got one actual phone line open. So when someone's actually on the phone line, you're just kind of waiting for them to get off, if you will. It's like trying to be caller number 7 on the radio. It's just hard to do. So StreamYard's simple. You'll be added to the studio. You'll be put in a queue and we'll get to your phone call. We got about 129 people on right now. Appreciate everybody being here. Before we get to our first caller, we got Clay here waiting to chat with us. I'll put the number up as well on the bottom ticker. The number to call this evening, if you want to do so by means of a phone call, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. And want to give a shout out to everybody who got here early. Tyler, you were here super early, about 40 minutes early. Appreciate that, Tyler. Kenton is here as well. ZJ, Zach, thank you for being here. And yes, absolutely. I appreciate you mentioning the Chris Street documentary. Quite a job by Big Ten Network. And that's all I tweeted out. I saw a lot of people like gushing over the job Big Ten Network did. They did tremendous, but I didn't feel the need to do that. I just was very appreciative that the Big Ten Network did what they did. And it was a lot of hard work. I mean, you're talking a lot of logistics to get guys like Jim Nance and, the guy who was driving the snowplow the night of Chris Street's death. Obviously, the Street family, I mean, a very difficult thing for them to go through and to have to talk about it again. Gary Close, of course, Coach Gary Close is a part of this channel and our post-game coverage. It was a tremendously well-done show. So I appreciate you bringing that out, Zach, and to everybody that was a part of it, not just Big Ten Network, but to everybody that was a part of it. Thank you. And if you haven't watched it yet, you'll get an opportunity to watch it. If you watch Big Ten Network, it's out there. And just a tremendous tribute. And it was kind of nice. Honestly, having the Northwestern game canceled, that's frustrating and all. I get it. I was disappointed by that. I thought it was bad timing with Iowa on a 4-game winning streak. You want to keep that momentum going, especially being able to play a Northwestern team that's good, but not great. And you're playing at home. You'd love to be able to play that game. I think they would have won that game. And you're talking about 5 straight wins. Instead, now we're talking about a road trip to Columbus and a road trip to East Lansing. Now, they may win tomorrow. We'll see. That's possible. But we'll see what happens with the Northwestern game. That game will now be played on the 31st of January. But it was kind of nice not having a game on Wednesday, just to kind of relax, enjoy the Chris Street special. And maybe this will do the Iowa men's basketball team well, having that extra day or extra few days off, whereas Ohio State played on Wednesday night. Cooper is here as well. Thank you, Cooper. Zach, biggest topic of discussion is Brian Ferentz. I have no idea how he still has a job. Well, I know why he has a job, because of Kirk, but yeah. Any other Power 5 school would have fired him after year 3 of OC. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, Zach. I'm not debating what you're saying here. You say any other Power 5 would have fired him after 3 years. I don't know. I'd go that far. I'd have to look at it. I think that's maybe a little bit too black and white, but I'm with you. If this were any other football program, I think we can safely say Brian Ferentz would no longer be here. That's not even a question, right? We're in year 5, 6 now, or entering year 5 or 6. I think we're entering at least year 6. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's weird. I heard, and I'm not trying to rip on anybody, but I heard someone the other day, and I don't get a chance to listen to other podcasts much, just because I don't have time. Not that I have anything against anybody's podcast. I've had different Iowa media members on this show in the past, and have respect for some in the Iowa media. But got a chance to listen to a show. I'm not going to say what it was, who it was. But this was a longtime Iowa media member that made this statement. He said, and I quote, "I'm not saying he needs to fire Brian." Speaking of Kirk, "I'm not saying he needs to fire Brian. I would never say that." So that's what I have an issue with that. Everybody has a right to their own opinion. But to say I would never say that, I don't know why that's the mindset with some in the media. I just don't understand it. I understand there's maybe some concerns from the media that's there covering the sport in Iowa City each and every week, each and every season. There's some concern that you may lose access if you go out and say Kirk needs to fire Brian. But whatever happened to columns and opinion pieces in sports media? I just don't understand. Why is that an opinion you can't have? I'm not going to rip on the guy who said it, because it's just my own opinion that that's why I'm outspoken. I just don't know what. Am I doing someone a disservice? Well, I'm obviously not doing Brian any favors. Not that anybody cares what I have to say, but am I blaspheming the Kirk Ferentz family name by saying that I think Brian Ferentz needs to be let go? I don't. I guess maybe loyalty runs deeper with people who have been covering the sport that closely for decades. So I'll give certain media members the benefit of the doubt that there's some natural loyalty that they feel to the program. I don't understand that. And that bothered me. And I quoted that. I wrote that quote down. I wanted to share it this evening because I just want to explain why I am outspoken. It's got nothing to do with trying to push an agenda or be the bad guy or be the anti-Kirk, anti-Iowa. It's got nothing to do with that. And I'm sure some people don't like me that have listened to me because they don't like how outspoken I am about it. And I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I try to speak with respect and do so delicately, but I'm also not going to I'm not going to be disingenuous, right? That's just not who I am. And I don't think that's what most of you who are listening, I don't think most people want to hear. They don't want to hear me just pulling stuff out of thin air because it's what I feel is the loyal thing to do. That's just not how I am. I'm all about loyalty, but I think that's a bit misguided. So I disagree with those that feel they could somewhat cover the sport, whether you're covering it in a formal fashion or you're covering it in a fashion like I do here on YouTube and via podcast. I don't agree with those that say, well, I would never say that I could never say that Brian should be fired. Well, why? What's the reason for that? Maybe somebody can explain that to me. Doc P is here as well. He says the biggest issue is the offensive line. It's a big issue, no question about it. And the youth card is no longer in play there. Could talk about that tonight as well. Go Hawks. A lot of OCs looking for work right now. There are some out there and some good ones. There are some good ones out there. Randy, thank you, Randy, for being here. Eric is here. Brian is here. Double Trouble Dad Squad. That's a new user. I don't think I've ever seen that username on here. I am concerned we are done in the portal and we shouldn't be. Still a lot of needs. I don't know that I'd conclude we're done in the portal. But with the window closing, right, you're going to see less guys entering. My understanding of the rule is that grad transfers can still enter. So, I mean, Charlie Jones entered he entered in like June, right? So this is the early window that just closed, today, yesterday, whatever it was. But there's players that can still be recruited, of course, but underclassmen cannot enter the portal at this time, is my understanding of the rule. Kells Bells, Kelly, thank you for being here. Happy Friday. It's always good to be able to do one of these shows on a Friday. I know a lot of people getting done with a busy work week, and you've had to endure some messy travel conditions here in the state of Iowa, so we're happy to be here, hopefully winding your week down on a Friday evening. Barbara, one of our premium subscribers. Barbara, thank you for being a premium subscriber, Barbara. If you want to follow in Barbara's footsteps, click the little join button next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm here on YouTube. And yes, we got wrestling tonight at 8, so we'll be wrapped up by wrestling. Although it sounds like maybe you're going to a high school wrestling meet. But Iowa wrestling tonight on BTN, I believe, at 8 p.m. Doug, I see Doug is also in our queue waiting to jump on. He's one of our premium subscribers, so thank you, Doug. Let's go to Carrie. Carrie is here as well. Fast Outdoor Food is here. Josh Gibson's here. Mark is here. I'll keep trying to give everybody a shout out. Let's get to our first caller. I don't want to just bore everybody with me giving random shout outs here. Let's get to our first caller. Clay has been waiting on hold patiently. Clay, it's been a while. How are you?
It has been a while since I called in. How's my favorite closet clone doing?
Closet clone. I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. See that cyclone there? That's means
yeah. You should put that poster up
what gave it away? The cyclone or the fact that I live in Ames? What gave it away?
I know a lot of people don't get your logo, but I do really like your logo, and I understand the Hawkeye of the Storm thing.
Thank you very much. I can't take credit for designing the logo because I didn't design it, but I thought it was a clever play on words when we came up with that name 2.5 years ago or whatever it was, and the logo was very well done by a very talented artist. So if anybody's interested in getting art done, maybe a logo made, let me know. Shoot me maybe say something in the chat or shoot me an email, and I'll hook you up with the person that made my logo. It's done very well, very authentic.
Cool. I'm more of a football guy, so that might be why I haven't called in a while. And I did kind of, shame on me, I did kind of give up on the basketball team after we dropped that 3 or 4 game slide. We lost to Nebraska. It was tough for me.
You gave up a game or two too early, Clay.
I did. Yeah, I did. I still went to the games. I went to the Michigan game, but I just...
How do you give up? How do you give up on a team if you're at the games?
That's true. That's a good point. I just stopped I listen to a lot of podcasts and follow a lot of stuff on Twitter. I kind of stopped doing the whole extra part of it. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. I still go to the games, but
listen, I totally understand because I'm in the business, and once you hit January, viewership goes down. So you're not the only one that feels that way. I appreciate everybody being here this evening, but you're not the only one that I mean, people are busy. You're busy people, and so I understand it.
Call me a bandwagon. I'm back on the train, though. Was it
I'm
4
good.
straight now?
4 straight, and probably would have been 5 if they played Wednesday. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm going to steer the discussion more towards football.
Okay.
But yeah, I am excited about the rest of the basketball season.
So what you got for football related, Clay?
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about Mike Leach, and I was going to ask you if you thought he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame or not.
Yes.
You're saying yes, no hesitation?
No hesitation. I agree with Mark Rogers. We had this discussion the other day on his show. It's ridiculous that there's this 60% threshold for being a college football Hall of Fame coach. I think that's ridiculous, especially for a guy who is as influential as Mike Leach. Like, it's not just about who he was as a person, and by all accounts, he's a great human being and obviously a very unique human being. But I think this is why you can't draw a line in the sand as it relates to stuff like the Hall of Fame, because you do that and all of a sudden you realize, oops, we just screwed ourselves years down the line. And I think that's kind of what they did with Mike Leach. I just don't, with how influential he was with the air raid and just everything he stood for. I don't understand any way to me, he'll end up being the guy that made this rule change, is my prediction. And that's the way it should be. I hate to think that that's what it has to come down to, but I think it's a dumb rule in the first place.
I don't want to drag his name through the mud and all, but he does only have 2 10-win seasons in his entire coaching career. You got to look at that a little bit, right? I mean,
well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's a fair point. Like I said, I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And I mean, is Kirk a Hall of Fame coach to you?
I think so, yeah. But I know he's not the 60% margin right now either.
So, yeah. But I think he is. I mean, my opinion is that he's a Hall of Fame coach. Now, he's had plenty of 10-win seasons, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of a line that we're drawing in the sand too, right? We're saying,
and if you throw out the main seasons, is he there? I haven't thought about that, but his first 2 or 3 main seasons, he was pretty losing.
If you throw out Maine, if you throw out his time at Maine, Kirk Ferentz, I believe, qualifies.
Because I don't know if you can really count that. I mean,
why can't you? That's the rule. FBS, right? Maine is FBS, correct? Or is it Division I? Is that the rule? I don't even know what the rule is, because the rule's dumb. Whatever the rule.
I couldn't tell you if they were not.
Is Maine? Does anybody know this? I don't know. But no, my understanding, and this is what conversation we had with Mark Rogers the other day, my understanding is that Kirk does not qualify because he's not yet over that 60% threshold. If he goes 10-2 this year, I believe he does, is what I was told. So I'd have to go back and look at his total head coaching record. But I just think, again, the Hall of Fame should be more than just strictly winning and losing. And that's what we're doing by making it a 60% threshold, saying that's clearly the line in the sand. Like, as Mark brought up yesterday or on Tuesday, a guy could have 3 seasons and hang it up and he'd qualify as a Hall of Fame coach, whereas a guy like Kirk has been around the block and he's going to have down years at times and maybe is somehow right below that 60% mark and does not qualify. To me, it just doesn't make sense to make things so black and white.
Agreed. I think Eli Manning would side with you as well. Not a winning coach.
Because of the same thing?
Or not a winning player. I mean, his overall record is right at 500, so he's not even a winning player, but he's going to make the Hall of Fame.
So tell me, because I don't even know what the NFL Hall of Fame, what the qualifications of Pro Football Hall of Fame, what are the qualifications for the Hall of Fame and the pros?
I don't know if there is a win-loss qualification for the pros.
Okay. Well, I just don't know where that came from and why, if that's the case, why college football has to be different.
Second question had to do a little bit about all the new coaching changes we're going to see next year in the Big Ten.
Okay.
As far as the West, which team do you think with the new coach is going to have the most successful year as far as Nebraska, Purdue, Wisconsin?
I think Purdue could be in danger, and I could be totally wrong on this. I think Purdue could be in danger of trading places with Illinois. I wouldn't be surprised if 2 years down the line we're thinking, hey, Bielema's kind of taking the place of Braum as far as, I mean, right now Purdue is they won the West this year, so they are one of your 4 what I consider annual contenders. And even though Minnesota hasn't won it, Minnesota's a contender every year, Iowa's a contender every year, Wisconsin's a contender every year, and up until now, Purdue has basically been a contender year in and year out. I mean, for the last few years. So with Bielema having that program, not everybody can win, right? Somebody's got to lose. So I'm not going to go on a limb and say Nebraska is going to all of a sudden take off and they're going to start, winning 10 games in 2023. But I do think Rule will get it done there. I'm more confident in Rule's ability to get it done than I ever was about Scott Frost. So I think Rule will get it done there. I have no reason to think Fickell will not get it done at Wisconsin. Well, I mean, why wouldn't he? He's recruiting well so far. He's added some pretty major transfer portal recruits, including a couple of quarterbacks that are sort of intriguing for this conference. For a conference that has lost a lot of starting quarterback experience, C.J. Stroud being one, Aiden O'Connell at Purdue, etc. So I think Purdue will fall back, and then probably if you were to ask me, if you're asking me who do I think has the best chance of having success in year one under a new head coach, I'd probably say Wisconsin, based on a culture that I think was instilled there well before Paul Chryst got there. So even though Barry Alvarez isn't a part of that, I mean, technically a part of that program anymore, he's not the AD. I think his fingerprints are still all over that program. And I think culturally they're in a better place than Nebraska. So I could see Luke Fickell getting it done there in literally 2 years. I don't think I doubt they win the West in year one, although the West probably ain't going to be very good. It's one very good this year. And as you brought up, you got 2 of the 4 major teams dealing with major coaching changes, and one of which, Iowa, would probably benefit from a coaching change. That's still in question. So, yeah, I would say Wisconsin has the best chance to take that next step early.
What an astute answer. That's why we listen to Corey right here, guys. What an astute, well thought out answer.
Felt like I was kind of rambling there, but
no, yeah, whatever. All you said made sense. Which one scares you more, Fickell or Rule?
Probably in the long run. I mean, they both do. I mean, Fickell, to me, it's amazing to me that Wisconsin was able to land him, because I know he's turned down other jobs. He's had opportunities to go places. I credit them for being able to land Fickell, and it's kind of the tale of two totally different programs, right? You have Wisconsin, which has been the pillar of stability since Barry got there. And then you have Nebraska that's got the tradition and the history, but yet they have not had the culture. They've not had the stability. So, I mean, you could argue maybe the ceiling at Nebraska is higher, but boy, I mean,
with the backing and the money and the fans. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Wisconsin's been to a number of Rose Bowls and they've been close to the playoff too. So I think both programs should scare teams like Iowa. I mean, it's programs like Iowa, fan bases. I'm not saying right away, but if you procrast, that's what brings us. We're kind of going full circle around to staff changes. That's why I feel so strongly now, because the schedule sets up well. Actually, Clay, I think the schedule sets up to where Iowa could double, triple, quadruple down on Brian and this staff again, and Kirk could say, "Well, we don't play Ohio State next year. We don't play Michigan next year. Purdue's got an overhaul going on. Nebraska's got a new head coach. Wisconsin's got a new head coach." I mean, Kirk could literally use that reasoning if he wanted to, and probably win next year. Like, probably win 9, maybe even 10 games with Brian. And when I say with Brian, I'm assuming that with Brian means a bad offense, but better with Cade McNamara. I think there's no question the offense will be better with Cade McNamara, and logic would tell you it's going to be better, because you really can't be any worse, right? I mean, if we're looking at total offense, right, they were 130 out of 131 teams by year's end. So they'll be better on offense, but I don't see any reason to think they're going to take some massive jump, even with Cade McNamara, and you lose Bruce and you lose Keegan Johnson. The offensive line has not shown significant signs of growth. So, but I think they could still win 9 or 10 games as a result of the schedule and as a result of what's going on around them. But the problem is, you get past that. Maybe you win the West. Maybe you lose in the Big Ten championship game, which I think is likely if you can get there. And then you head to 2024 and you say, okay, well, Brian didn't get it done this past year. So now we're going to move on from Brian. The lawsuit's behind us now. Brian's more hireable. He goes somewhere else. But the problem is, now you're making a change as USC and UCLA join the conference, as divisions are jumbled. And I think two things. I think that's dangerous because you are in danger of starting an era and making it hard on whoever comes in as the OC to have to deal with what could be just a wicked conference of competition. And then the other part of this is you're missing a window. They've got an opportunity in 2023 to win a Big Ten championship. I really believe that. I think they have the personnel. I think they have some work to do as far as personnel. I don't think they should be done in the portal. But with what they have, great potential for great tight end play, very good, I'm not going to say elite quarterback play, but very good quarterback play. I know wide receiver and offensive line, still big question marks in my mind. Defense is going to be great. You get Drew Stevens, who's going to be the best kicker in the conference. You got Torrey Taylor, who's the best punter in the conference. Cooper DeJean is an emerging specialist and corner, of course. I just think they have a window in 2023 to win a Big Ten championship, right? And a person may say, well, there's not much difference between 9-3 and 10-2 or 11-1. Well, that's true. There may not be a huge difference as it relates to the win and loss column, but once we get to Indianapolis, I think there's going to be a big difference based upon history, based upon what we've seen. Whereas if you make a change and you give a guy this season to integrate himself, perhaps you can steal a Big Ten championship game in 2023 before the divisions are split up, and then all of a sudden you're established heading into a changing landscape, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we definitely have some needs that we need to fill. Interior lineman that'd be mine most needed. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen more offers out there from Iowa. I mean, there's so many guys out there. I'm not saying you offer. I've gotten ripped by people for implying that we should offer anybody and everybody. I've never ever said that. But every time I retweet somebody that enters the transfer portal, I guess people perceive that as me saying, "Why don't we go get them?" And that's not what I'm saying. I enjoy the transfer portal. I enjoy talking about it. So that's what Twitter's for. But I agree. I'm surprised Iowa hasn't offered more guys that I think project to be interior guys. I would guess that Dejon Parker ends up being a tackle, and they have need at tackle. But I was a little bit surprised that they haven't yet made more of a push for guys on the inside. And I think they probably believe in Logan Jones, or they wouldn't have moved him from the defensive line to center in the first place. But you're right. They've struggled at the two guard spots for quite some time now, even going back to 2019, right? With the Paulson twins, they struggled mightily at guard. So I agree with you. But, Kirk, it just comes down to, I think, too, how much confidence does Kirk have in George Barnett? Because it does not appear that they're making a change there. I think if there's a change coming, it's not going to be there. And I could be wrong on that. But I'm guessing that Kirk will give George at least one more year to figure this out. And I think that's probably the right thing to do. I'm not an advocate for firing George Barnett after 2 seasons. But if he doesn't get it done this year, then you're up a creek without a paddle. So this is do or die year for George Barnett. And so it would have been nice if you could have added a few, 2 or 3 portal guys who are experienced, developed to kind of assist and take some pressure off of Barnett, if that makes sense. I mean, he's still got to develop the guys behind those experienced vets, but give him some time to do that. Dejon Parker, I like the kid's tape. He looks good, but we're talking Saginaw Valley State. There's going to be a learning curve, regardless of his size. And he is 6'6", 300 pounds. But I agree with you. Interior is important, and I don't think they should be done at wide receiver. I am not confident in the wide receiver room right now. As much as I like Seth Anderson, as much as I like Nico Reganey, after that, who's starting? Is it Vines? Is it Brecht? Is it Bostic? Is it one of the freshmen?
Yeah, I just don't want to see Cade run for his life all next year. And if you have problems at tackle and you get edge pressure, you can kind of deal with that. But if you have issues in the middle of the line and you're getting pressure right up the nose, just guys untouched, that's a play killer every time. You can't really deal with right up the nose pressure when you got a guy just running straight in your face. You can go left or step up in the pocket when you get off the edge, but there's not a whole lot of options when they're coming right at you.
Yeah, Nate Stanley found that out the hard way in 2019.
Logan Jones terrifies me. There's no way there should be that many messed up snaps in what was there, 4 or 5 over the head or just short. And Petras isn't the most athletic guy to be handling snaps. I'll give him that, but there's no way that should happen that many times in a season. Just not with 2 D1 players. No way.
But that's a fair comment to make, and you just hope that those issues are. I mean, if Brian Ferentz is going to know anything, I would think that it would be about how to coach a center. you know, so if he's still around in 2023 is in fall, well, in spring, frankly, I would hope that he's working closely with Logan Jones, regardless of regardless of George Barnett being the position coach. I would hope that Brian is. Well, that's the problem. We've got Brian coaching quarterbacks. Explain that one. So, anyways,
linebacker worries me a little bit too, but complete faith in Phil Parker to fill that up. But I've taken enough of your time. I'll hop off, let somebody else get on. Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it, Clay. Thank you. Oh, that was a lot of substance. That was a good call from Clay. Appreciate him calling in. And of course, if you're interested in calling the show, the call line's busy right now, but you can still join by clicking the link in the description below. I'll also throw it back up in the live chat for anybody that wants to call in. Just threw it up in the live chat there, the StreamYard link. Let's get to our caller who has been on hold. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Yeah, this is Zach Moore.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Good, how are you? My biggest question is, like the line. Do you know anything about David Koff? Like, is he coming back, or I didn't know.
Yeah, I've heard scuttlebutt on David Koff, but nothing that has been confirmed by anybody from the university or by him or his family. So, I mean, you can probably Google it and find. I know certain beat writers have talked about it. So I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. I don't really want to speculate, but I will say this. I can address David Koff in this regard. If they don't get David Koff back, that's another major miss, because as you know, he was a 4-star kid coming out of high school. They have not had the best success with some of these higher end recruits, Tyler Enders being another, Ezra Miller being another. If you want to even count Caden Proctor, them losing him before he even signed, that's another miss. Yeah, I don't have high hopes, but like I said, nothing's been confirmed from the university or David on his status moving forward.
And another thing, with Cade coming to Iowa, do you think the play schemes will change at all? Like, they'll let him throw farther out and shit like that?
Well, I mean, you got to have time, right? I mean, that's a huge part of Iowa's issue. I mean, what's frustrating to me, Zach, and you probably feel the same way, is this, if there's anything that Spencer Petras was good at, it was his deep ball. And how many times did Iowa throw the ball downfield this year?
Well, I have season tickets. I think I've seen maybe one play.
Yeah. So, I mean, perfect example. I don't necessarily know that Brian Ferentz knows how to deal with this mess. I think he's in over his head. So, I mean, I said it heading into this last season. I said, I think Brian's going to attack in all different kind of ways, and he never really did, right? There were moments where he did. I mean, think back to the first play from scrimmage on the road at Minnesota, and they go Y screen middle with Sam Laporta, and it turns into a big play. They did the first drive of the Kentucky game, but then they go away from it. So I don't really know that Brian Ferentz knows how to attack down the field. And it's not me ripping him. He's a former center who's coached offensive line. He's coached tight ends, and he's not a passing game guy. And I think the best thing that Iowa could have done a year ago, and I said this at the time, what they could have done a year ago was brought in a passing game coordinator, and you could have kept Brian as the OC, and you could have even made him run game coordinator / OC. You bring in a passing game coordinator, make him the quarterback's coach, and he helps with the passing offense. That would have been the best move to conserve, or should I say preserve, some of the face that I think I was trying to save as it relates to Brian and the situation, and potentially could have helped this offense as a whole. They didn't do that. Instead, they made, I thought, maybe the worst decision they could have made in making Brian the quarterback's coach, and they've paid the price for it. So I don't have a lot of, if Brian returns, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Iowa being able to figure out the passing game all of a sudden. I think it will be better as a result of who's quarterbacking the offense. Cade McNamara is a guy who's developed. He's learned from, I think, some pretty darn good coaches up at Michigan, one of which being the head coach. He's a former quarterback himself. So he's coached, he's developed. That will help. But as you brought up, it still comes down to schematics and play calling, and I don't have a whole lot of faith in the staff to do what needs to be done in those regards.
The one last thing with like the Purdue game this year, when they get up so high, why does Kirk just let his foot off the gas? And like I've seen it before where Iowa does that, and then the second half, the other team comes out and just ends up winning because Kirk just, it seems like he doesn't want to like embarrass them, I don't know.
Well, I think more often than not, I don't know that it's a matter of Kirk not wanting to embarrass an opponent. I don't think Jeff Brom is a guy that Kirk probably has a whole lot of mercy for, given the history there. But I think more often than not, Kirk plays not to lose, and that means that he's going to take his foot off the gas when he feels that he can go conservative and use clock. And to an extent, I mean, you brought up the Purdue game. I was at that game, and we had 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts. We had debris blowing through the stands. There was rain in the area. I mean, it was a weird game, and they dominated Purdue on the other end of on defense. I mean, Purdue scored 3 points for the game, I think. So
yeah, it was.
I understand where you're coming from, trying to explore things as you're winning a game like that. And certainly, the Nevada game's a good example of, you're up 27-0. Why not put in a backup quarterback? Perfect question to ask there. I don't have the answer to that, but I think more often than not, Kirk is afraid to make mistakes, and you put your guys in a position where they could fail or throw a pick or fumble or whatever the case may be, then bad things happen. I think his mindset is, let's get out of Dodge. Let's find a way to win. If it's not pretty, that's fine. A win's a win. I think that's Kirk's mindset.
Okay, this is my last thing again. But with the whole Carson May thing, when he played against Kentucky in the bowl game, in my opinion, he looked way better than Spencer did all year. Like, why? Like, do you think Kirk and staff can actually evaluate quarterbacks, or like, I don't know?
You're talking about Carson May, or is Joey Labus?
Or Joey Labus? Sorry, Joey Labus. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, again, I don't have a ton of faith in Iowa evaluating quarterbacks either. I've said that on a number of occasions, and I've been an advocate for Iowa to play multiple quarterbacks. I mean, heck, Coach Don Patterson has talked about that on this very show. There's nothing wrong with playing multiple quarterbacks, and it doesn't mean you're going to play multiple quarterbacks forever, but give your guys an opportunity, fair opportunities, to showcase their skill set. And, I don't believe putting Alex Padilla into a game when you're down 25 or whatever it was at Ohio State in the second half is putting him in a position to succeed. And those were his only snaps of the season, heading into a situation where they had to have him down 21 against Nebraska. So I don't know about, I wasn't all that, I'll be frank, I wasn't all that impressed with Joey Labus in the bowl game, but I also wasn't unimpressed. I mean, I thought he was okay. Iowa went uber conservative. All right. Once they got up, it was over. And as Don Patterson brought out on the show, they were not going to give Joey Labus enough string to hang himself, or enough rope to hang himself. But certainly Kentucky was more than willing to do that with their quarterback, and he did. I mean, he threw 2 pick sixes and the game was over. So, I mean, Joey Labus, it's been widely publicized that Joe Labus was behind the other two guys just in head knowledge and knowledge of the playbook. So if Kirk's not comfortable with a guy being able to make decisions whether we're talking about pre-snap decisions or decisions during the course of gameplay, he's not going to play the guy. And I think even with Spencer Petras' downfalls, Spencer is a very bright young guy who understood the playbook, had been here for what, 4 or 5 years now. And so ultimately he was more comfortable with what he knew than what he didn't know. That would be how I would describe the reason why we didn't see Padilla and Labus more.
Thank you, Corey. Thanks for doing all that you do and taking time out of your day to do these shows for us.
Appreciate you calling in, Zach. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Good calls so far, folks. The number of the phone line is back open, 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. And we're here till 8 o'clock, and I can't believe 45 minutes have flown by already. I'm a little bit behind in the chat. Want to give a shout out to Erica. Thank you for the super chat, Erica. Is anyone else concerned about depth? Well, you're always concerned about depth, and there are certain positions where that concern is greater than others. Also, what happens if McNamara's injury affects his play? Valid question. Of course, they did bring in Deacon Hill. Talk about him maybe a little later. The Wisconsin transfer who was committed to, let's see, where was he committed to? I was going to say Troy. That's not right. Where was he committed to? Somebody's going to tell me in the chat. Some very small school, I think an FCS school. We'll get to our caller here on the phone line in a second. But yeah, there's concern there. I mean, Joey Labus was okay, but I'm talking about the bowl game. But yeah, I mean, if for some reason Cade has, I mean, Don talked about it on recent show. You're more concerned with Cade's knee than you are with Eric All's back, right? I mean, that's just natural. So yeah, fingers crossed. You're hoping that McNamara is good to go, and they need him in the spring. The good news is they did add another quarterback in the transfer portal for spring depth. They get Marco Linez, of course, in the summer, but he'll be a true freshman. So they'll have bodies once we hit fall. Carson May is not committed anywhere. I expect him to go, right? He's in the transfer portal, so we'll just have to wait and see where he ends up. Coil Stipulate is here. Thank you for being a premium subscriber, Coil Stipulate. Bob Hoffman, I like your logic regarding your way too early top 25 picks. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for watching. Yep, that video is up on YouTube and on Instagram as well. If you haven't yet followed the Instagram page, I encourage everybody who's here to do so. At From the Hawkeye on Instagram, and of course that's my Twitter handle as well. At From the Hawkeye and on Twitter and on Instagram. You can also like the Facebook page From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. All right. Let's get to Doug, who's been patiently waiting. Doug, you don't normally call in on football shows. Now, this is not a football show per se. All right. I want to make that clear. You can ask a basketball question, but I don't know that have you ever called in one of our football shows?
No, I wanted to call Coach Patterson quite a few times to ask him why he didn't throw the ball to Tim Dwight more. But yeah. No, I follow football. We went to 2 games this year. We went to South Dakota State game, and South Dakota State became national champs. So I guess I got to watch the national champs play.
And let's take a moment to congratulate Coach Stiglmeyer on a terrific career. He hung it up this week, and by all accounts, and Don knows him as well, class act guy, and what a great coach, and what a way. I mean, talk about going out on top.
Yeah.
To win a national championship and to hang it up. Congratulations to Coach Stiglmeyer up at South Dakota State.
Yeah, you were talking about one of the other podcasts. The guy said he would never fire Brian or something. I don't believe anyone's above approach. Like, we don't owe anything as fans to Kirk. He gets a nice salary. He gets a nice house, even though he fights with his neighbors, I guess. You know, we owe nothing to Kirk or Brian, or Mary or any of them. I mean, I don't understand that logic, why we have to be so loyal to anyone. I agree with you. Like,
first of all, as you know, there's plenty of fans out there that are more than happy to say, fire Brian. But I'm just quoting, and I'm not, by no means am I implying that everybody in the media is averse to saying that Brian Ferentz should be fired. I'm just giving you one example. And that's sort of that's kind of a frustration of mine that anybody in the media would feel that way. That's their right. I just don't agree with it. I just don't agree with the idea that it's almost morally below you to say that somebody should be fired. Why is that wrong?
Yeah.
That's your opinion, right? Everybody has opinions, and that's part of working in the sports media. I don't understand that, but maybe I'm not qualified to even speak on that because I don't cover the Iowa football team in that fashion.
Well, there's hundreds of thousands of us that are paying the university to go to games. We support the team. I think our opinions do matter. I mean, sometimes we're very wrong and we drink the Kool-Aid, but our opinions matter. And I was going to say, it starts at the top. It starts with Gary Barta. Leadership is very important. I didn't realize I Googled all their age because I thought Barta might be close to retirement. He's only 59. He's younger than all the major sports guys. So I was like, Kirk and Lisa and Fran are all older than him. So I was kind of surprised about that.
Mike Bray's hanging it up, and he's 63, I believe.
Yeah, but I don't think Barta's on hanging up.
I don't think he's close to that.
Yeah, I think of the NIL stuff. You went over all that stuff that he's just. I mean, who is Brian? Who is Brian accountable to? He's obviously not accountable to his dad because
probably is. No, and I don't mean this in a facetious fashion. Nobody read it. He's probably accountable to his wife.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's good. I mean,
yeah.
Right. But that's the most important relationship in his life. But I mean, as it relates to the workplace, that's a great question. To say that he is accountable to Kirk, well, that hasn't been proven, in my opinion. Maybe behind closed doors, there are certain things where Brian's been held accountable, but you just go down the list, right? Whether we're talking about the 2017 press box blow up or we're talking about the 2020 allegations, right? That, got Chris Doyle fired and Brian Ferentz and Seth Wallace were retained. That's Kirk's decision, right? But that's a fact that happened. And now, of course, just performance wise, yeah, that's a fair question. Who, if anybody, is holding Brian Ferentz accountable?
Yeah, I just nobody's above approach. And, I will say this, there's no way that we can't have an offense that is middle of the pack. When you're last in your job, and a lot of people in the chat will agree, you usually get fired from your job, and I can't imagine, everyone says, well, it's complimentary football. I can't imagine Phil Parker is ever happy with it. You shouldn't rely on having a pick six to win a game, but I don't really have much else. Like you said, it's kind of football. I'm hoping we get our fifth straight win in basketball. I'm happy Patrick's back. I let my opinion known. I think it starts with the AD. Before we can get a new football coach or I'd hope we can get an offensive coordinator before next year. But if our head football coach doesn't want to fire his son, I don't know who's going to make him. So
I have a question for you, Doug. And this is a basketball question. Are you at all concerned about the Notre Dame Fran situation at all?
I would have 5 years ago. I would have. It depends on how the rest of the season goes. Yes, I would think
if you're leaving the door open, then that means you're somewhat concerned. I mean, there's people who say, well, there's no way he leaves. I don't buy that. To say there's no way he leaves at age 60 or whatever he is. What is he, 63, 64? There's no way he leaves? That's not – I don't believe that at all. I think there's a chance. He's still got a kid in high school. He's not that old. I mean, he's as old as Mike Bray, but, some guys coach into their late 70s.
Yeah, I thought when the Villanova guy quit last year and the guy came right away, I thought Villanova would have been a job he would have looked at. I don't think I was his dream job. I really think, Philadelphia job or, like you said, South Bend. He's an interesting guy. I don't know if he would leave, but I would not be shocked. There's nothing that shocks me with coaches nowadays,
Well, keep in mind, Margaret did play there.
Yeah.
So that's got to be, I would think that has to be a pull. Both Fran and Margaret have major connections there. Now, the kids don't have any, right? I don't even know.
They were born when they Greensboro and stuff like that. So, No, I think, we talked about loyalty and we talked about what Fran, if he chooses that, that's good for him. I mean, it's basketball. I mean, I don't think he owes Iowa anything. And, there'll be a lot of people happy that he leaves. And there'll be a lot of people sad. I think he's a very, like I said, if I was grade Fran, I think he gets a solid B for his career at Iowa. But yeah, I wouldn't. If it was if he leaves for Notre Dame, I won't be that upset. If he left like for Arkansas or something, that would upset me. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like him leaving for a school he has ties to doesn't upset me. I mean, really, I can understand you going home. I don't know if that makes me different than most fans, but like I said,
I don't see any way. That's the thing. Like, I don't see any way he goes anywhere other than
a
dream job. And I think, I'm not saying Notre Dame is his dream job, but I could see it being that, right? Like, that's one of the few jobs I could see him leaving this. That's my whole point in what I tweeted out earlier in the week. Like, there aren't many jobs out there that I could foresee him leaving. Yes, this late in his life but Notre Dame might be one of those that makes him at least entertain it. Who knows if Notre Dame wants him? Do we know that Notre Dame wants to hire a 64-year-old coach? We don't know that. I mean, Notre Dame is Notre Dame. Fran's got a history of having some temper issues. Those are things that may be deterrents.
I want to say something, and I don't want to start any controversy, but our first call, if Fran would leave, is to Milwaukee, Iowa, to Darren DeVries.
Why would that stir up controversy?
Because I'm saying I would rather have Darren DeVries, because I think Darren DeVries is on the verge of being a very good coach. And what he's doing at
rather him than who? Who else would be qualified?
I don't know.
You're not stirring up any controversy. That's a legitimate thing to say. And let me say this too, without really studying Darren DeVries, his resume, and I understand he's done great things at Drake. He's a young head coach. Think about it. I mean, he's young, so I mean, it wouldn't be I think a lot of fans would like the idea of Matt Gatens in 5-6 years, but he wouldn't be ready if Fran left now. So you bring Darren DeVries in there, who has coached with Matt Gatens.
Yep.
Then potentially, you're right. I think that's a fair question. Then what happens? You're going to lose.
Again, I don't want to jump
you're
the gate.
Lose Courtney Eldridge, and you're likely going to lose Sherm Dillard. I don't know that Sherm sticks around. I mean, he probably retires if that happens. Courtney Eldridge would move on, I would guess. So then you're probably looking for at least one or two assistants. But I could see Matt stick. Why wouldn't Matt stick around? Why wouldn't Darian retain Matt? I know we're completely.
let's play Ohio State tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you for the call-in show. Like I said, it starts with leadership. I think somebody has to hold Brian and Kirk accountable. And I don't know who that is. So, thank you.
We'll talk to you tomorrow afternoon, Doug.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. All right. I've got to address a couple things in the chat here. Doc P, talk O-line with us. Is there any info on David Cobb, Britt? I brought up David Cobb earlier. There's not been anything confirmed from his family that I'm aware of. Nothing confirmed to university. I know certain people do it, but I don't like talking about personal stuff with kids that, and in this David Cobb situation is unfortunate. So I don't know that we can say definitively because it hasn't been confirmed by any official party, but I don't have a lot of high hopes there. We'll see. Justin Britt, I believe, and again, I don't even want to say this because I don't believe it's been confirmed by anybody with Iowa or with his family, but I would just say this: he's had a lot of injuries, so you do the math on that. I can't confirm that because it hasn't been confirmed, but I would be surprised if we see Justin Britt back again. That would be what I'd say on Justin. That's unfortunate because he had played well at times on the interior, and they need help on the interior. So if that's the case, I hope it's not. Best wishes to Justin Britt. Tyler says the O-line is clearly the problem. Why is there not more talk about the O-line? Well, we've talked about the O-line quite a bit. Dennis, Padilla going to SMU. Yes, Alex Padilla committing to Southern Methodist just about an hour before we hopped on here. It's a very intriguing place for him to go, right? He goes from Iowa City to Dallas. And then the other part of this is, you have a situation where I don't know. I mean, you look at the framework down in Dallas at SMU, and you're coming back from a quarterback in Tanner Mordecai who set records there, and now he's going to Wisconsin. It's a very prolific offense. It's just going to be an interesting landing spot for Alex Padilla. This quarterback room is going to look a lot different, not just because Spencer Petras will not be an official part of it, not just because Alex Padilla will not be a part of it, or Carson May, but because they're adding guys like Cade McNamara and Deacon Hill. All right. I believe we have Coach JT Stone on the line. JT, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. And JT, I appreciate you taking the time. Most people here probably don't know who you are. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with one of Iowa's new quarterbacks.
All right. So right now, like I said, I told you before, I just took a job in Charlotte. So I'm the new head coach at Harding University High. But I spent 10 years at the Santa Barbara High School where Deacon played for me. Actually, not even high school. Deacon's been with me since 5th grade. So he's like a son to me. I've known him for a long time, trained him. And, yeah. So that's who I am. And I've been a part of this kid's life for a long time.
Oh, and again, I wanted to, just so everybody knows, I invited JT on this show because I wanted to get his perspective on what Deacon is bringing to this roster and to this quarterback room. Because as you know, JT, this quarterback room has undergone somewhat of an overhaul, to say the least.
Yes.
And I know Deacon has been, he's been all over the place, right? He committed to, am I correct in saying Fordham was his previous commitment, correct?
Yeah, that was when he was in a portal. Absolutely, he committed to Fordham. Obviously, it got to the point where, here's the deal. The portal's brutal for everybody, for every kid. There's still kids that are in it. So it was one of these things where, how much did we hold on? There were a lot of schools, a lot of Division I schools that showed interest. But the portal and coaches, it's one of these things where it's all about relationships. And I hate saying it, the portal's a dirty game, and coaches sometimes, play with these kids, but he had an opportunity. I think with Fordham, it was more of an academic situation where, hey, Deke, let's get there. It's academic. You're going to get a great education, and let's move on. But his whole deal was still in his heart. He wanted that Division I opportunity. He's a Division I football player, period. And I'm not going to talk about Wisconsin and what did not happen at Wisconsin, but all Deacon we needed an opportunity just to show what he had, and he wasn't allowed to do that at Wisconsin. That's the one thing I will say. So, but I'm happy that he landed at a Division I school where he's going to get a shot. Coach Bud Meyer is the coach that recruited him to Wisconsin, and then he had left from Wisconsin. And so when Bud Meyer got there, he reached out to Deacon, and it was, I believe things happen for a reason. So it was really good to see that. And I think Deacon is going to surprise a lot of people. The one thing I've encouraged him to do is be patient. Take your time, whoever the starter is. If you get an opportunity, just take your time and learn. And that's all Deacon wanted. He's got a live arm. He can throw the ball down there 80 yards down the field, and he's going to show everybody at the end of the day, exactly what he's about. And, I'm extremely happy for him, extremely happy for the kid.
So JT, talk a little bit. You talked about the live arm, but and that's, you're trying to find information on a young man who was very successful, but played high school football a long ways away from Iowa. We don't often have quarterbacks besides maybe Spencer Petras here recently. We don't have many quarterbacks coming in from California. So, he threw for over 3,000 yards.
3,200 yards, I think, and he rushed for like 500 to 600 is what he had in our offense.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about his game. What makes him unique? What makes him different from your average quarterback at this level?
I honestly think his size and his ability to throw the deep ball. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. That's the two major things that I think he are his strong points, is the deep ball, and the fact that he can make those throws. He can make all the throws. There are some mechanic things that I think he's going to get better at, that he still needs to improve at. But that's like with any quarterback. There's a lot to be desired. And I think with him is, Deacon doesn't want necessarily to come in and hey, I'm the guy. He wants to learn. And I think the biggest thing is once he gets that opportunity to learn, it's only going to show what he needs to do. And I was glad that he went to more of a pro-style offense, which is suited for him. Obviously, he can run the spread, but I think the fact that he's going to be able to have a running game behind him and make those play action throws, those deep posts, those 15-yard comebacks, I think it's going to be really, he's going to show what he can do. And I really think his arm and ability to throw the ball 15 to 20 yards down the field on a rope is really going to be something that I think he's going to expose himself at that, and I think it's going to be great for him.
So correct me if I'm wrong, JT. He redshirted in 21. Of course, he didn't play this year, so he's got 3 years left. Correct.
Correct. He's got 3 years left. Correct.
So what is his? I mean, you talked about being patient, and you've admonished him to be patient. Obviously, I mean, it's no secret that Iowa went out and got Cade McNamara, accomplished guy from Michigan early in the portal cycle.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but me and Deacon talked about that. I think that's a great thing. Deacon thinks that's a great thing because he can sit and watch. He can sit if he's not the starter, he gets an opportunity to get reps to learn somebody's system and to sit behind a kid who can play. And that's all I can ask for him. I think the hardest thing is with a quarterback is putting a kid in the fire who's not ready. Will he be ready? Absolutely. So I think it's a very good situation. I think Deacon thinks it's a good situation. And he gets to learn. And I think that's the positive about this. He's hungry, but he's sensible. He understands what it's going to have to take for him to lead and especially in a Power 5 conference to get there. So me and him have talked about that. That's a great thing. He gets to watch a guy and learn. Absolutely.
So besides Iowa being a Power 5 school, a Big Ten school, and yep. certainly being a pro style offense, and in the yep. connection, of course, with John Budmeyer, what ultimately was it that attracted him to Iowa? Besides the obvious things, relationship with certain coaches.
Well, you know what's crazy is before he took the Wisconsin deal. I mean, Iowa State, Kansas. Yeah, I think he had a Kansas State offer. I mean, we talked about the prototypical type schools, and we talked about Iowa. But again, Iowa didn't come around, and I think if the opportunity was there, he might have went to Iowa. It's just one of these things where, he just wants a chance to play, and being in pro style offense, I think for him is very attractive. But he just wanted an opportunity to play, and at the end of the day, you go where you're wanted. It could be Hawaii, it could be Alabama. You go where you're wanted, and I just think that's what any kid wants, is that opportunity. And it could have been Nebraska, it could have been it could have been North Dakota State. Just when you're wanted and you get an opportunity to compete at a high level, and you feel like you're worth something, And I tell these kids all the time, you got to find out what your worth is, and I think he's on that chase to do that. So I mean, Iowa is a place where I really think he can fit in and do well. I do.
How big of an impact was it? I mean, how big of a pull was John Budmeyer in the whole situation?
Oh, I think it's big pull because I met John when he came in recruited Deacon when he was in high school, and just a phenomenal human being. He understood Deacon. He was able to watch Deacon, and the same things that I saw, he saw. And I've always told Deacon, college football is about relationships. If you have a relationship with a coach and he cares about you and he believes in you, you take that opportunity. And Budmeyer could have been at any school. That relationship, and hey, you know what? I'm gonna give this kid an opportunity. And that's all any kid needs is an opportunity to do something. And it was a no-brainer. When we got the call, I was like, Deacon, things happen for a reason. And I really think it was a relationship. And Budmeyer had already left. He had gone to believe Colorado State and went somewhere else. And he came back, and he knew Deacon was in the portal, and it was just a no-brainer. And I'll tell you right now, you guys got a sleeper. I mean, sometimes I think as coaches, people look at all these stars, and they think the stars are everything. To me, they're not anything. I've seen kids that can play better than a 4- or 5-star kid, and Deacon's won. 100%. 100%.
Last question for me, Coach, and again, appreciate you calling in and taking a few minutes here on the show. Is there a quarterback, maybe a former college quarterback, or even a guy at the next level that you would compare Deacon's game to specifically?
I always called him Big Ben. Just because he reminds me of him. Just because the play action skills that Deacon has, and the fact that he can throw the long ball, and I just think he plays a lot like Big Ben. And I mean, that's who I've always compared him to.
Well, Coach JT Stone on the phone line. Appreciate you giving us a call, Coach, and we look forward to watching Deacon here over the next 3 seasons. And you're right, there may be some time to learn, but we're happy he's a part of this quarterback room and this offense that is going through some changes, and I think changes hopefully for the better.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you guys. Anything else you need from me, let me know. And you guys got a good one.
Thank you, Coach. Have a good rest of your night.
You too. Sounds good. All right. Bye.
All right. Coach J.T. Stone, former Iowa, former Deacon Hill's former high school coach down in the Santa Barbara area. And now he's out in the Carolinas coaching. But appreciate Coach Stone taking a few minutes here to chat with us about Deacon Hill, who is the latest addition to Iowa's QB room. So thank you again, Coach Stone, for giving us a call this evening. And hopefully we'll get a chance to chat with Deacon in the future. I don't know. I'm assuming Deacon is there now. I'm assuming he's at Iowa, right? I know Seth Anderson is at Iowa now. But it'll be good to see just some fresh blood in there. I'm disappointed that Carson May moved on. I'm just kind of somewhat disappointed that Alex Padilla moved on, but I think that was going to happen. I don't blame him one bit, but it'll be nice to have some fresh blood back there. And sounds like that John Budmeyer pull is exactly that, a pull. So it'll be interesting to see how the cookie crumbles. Like everybody expects Cade to be the guy, and then all of a sudden it's going to be Marco Lainez. I mean, I'm high on Marco Lainez, but a couple guys go down with an injury. Somebody transfers. Deacon Hill could, you never know. He could end up being the guy here in a year, or even if, heck, I mean, you deal with if Cade is not back fully once we get to spring, and say Joey Labus goes down with an injury, Deacon Hill is your number one quarterback in the spring. And those are valuable snaps, right? Valuable reps. So will be interesting to see Deacon Hill's development here at Iowa. Zach, what if BF is still here and KF hires Steve? If that happens, pitchforks, torches will occur in Iowa City. That would be, I don't have any reason to think that will happen. That would be such a bad move. Just from I don't even know, like that would be such a bad look, right? I don't, even if Gary Barta signed off on it, and holy cow, if he did that, I would have to think the university president would step in at that point. I would just have to think that somebody would step in at that point and say, no, we can't do this anymore. We're driving this thing into the ground. Not that Steve Ferentz can't coach. Maybe he'd be a good linebacker coach at Iowa. That's what he coached down at Miami with the Dolphins. He got fired here recently. He was an assistant linebackers coach down there. He's a former offensive lineman himself, just like Brian. But yeah, that would be such a bad look. There's no way that happens. Danimal, one of our premium subscribers. Appreciate the super chat, Danimal. I don't know if you've answered this on the show yet, but are you able to give a percentage chance on Iowa getting a new OC for next season? Understandable if you can't. Go Hawks. That's a great question. I'd just be spewing out a guess if I did that, Danimal. I can tell you this, I wanted to share this. This is out there. I'm not the first person to have said this publicly, I don't think, but I can tell you on good authority that there is a chance that Brian goes to the league, right? That door is still open. And I think that there's no question that the job to follow right now is the OC, the offensive coordinator position with the New England Patriots. And no, I'm not implying that Brian's going to be interviewed for that job. No, but keep in mind that Brian was a tight ends coach at New England when Bill O'Brien was the OC there. Bill O'Brien interviewed for the job yesterday, interviewed for the OC job yesterday. He is currently the OC down at Alabama. If he gets hired back to the Patriots staff as the OC, I have reason to believe that there is a chance, don't know how big, don't know how small, there is a chance that perhaps Brian is hired back with New England. I think those conversations have been had. I think they will be had if that move occurs. I think we're going to find out what happens with New England very soon, right? It sounds like they wrapped up their interviews today. Bill O'Brien has widely been considered the favorite for the job. If Bill O'Brien doesn't get the job, then I don't know where Brian ends up. Is there a chance he still comes back to Iowa? Yes, I believe there is. I'll add this as well, and this should encourage you. I'm not going to go into grave detail on this, but I can tell you that Iowa is ready for Brian to move on. And I'm not saying that certain people want him to move on, but I'm saying if that move happens, Iowa has been ready now for a few weeks. In other words, they have been preparing for this. They will not be caught off guard by it. They will have a plan in place, okay? And they will move forward, okay? I'm just saying there are things going on behind closed doors that there will be a move that Iowa will not. I don't think Iowa will delay in making a move if Brian moves on. I'll just leave it at that. Will that happen? I'm not guaranteeing that right now because I don't think Kirk could guarantee that right now. I don't think Brian could guarantee that right now. I don't think even the people there at Iowa know yet. I don't think any of them know because it all hinges on can Brian find a job somewhere in the league. And that most likely would be with New England. It's hard to hire Brian right now with the pending lawsuit, and certainly his track record. But Kirk's got the connections to Bill Belichick. Brian's got the connections to Bill O'Brien. And I have reason to believe that if Bill O'Brien is hired as the OC at New England, there is a decent chance, I'll say that, decent chance that Brian ends up being hired by New England. Where? That's a question. Nick Caley, I believe, is the tight ends coach at New England. I think did he interview for the OC job as well? I don't know what his future could they bring in somebody to help with the O-line. They've had some issues there. I know the situation with what's his face that switched from defense to offense. Guy's name, big guy, can't think of his name at the moment. They've had some staff issues here. I mean, over the last year, and Bill Belichick's in a weird situation, kind of similar situation to Iowa, right? He's had his son on staff. They've been on the decline. The offense hasn't been very good, and they were kind of forced to make some changes. So I don't know that it'd be a great look if Bill Belichick brings in Brian, but at the same time, I think you could defend it from Bill Belichick's perspective, from Bill O'Brien's perspective, because Brian was successful as the tight ends coach at New England, albeit with two really good tight ends. And I think it's fair to say a lot of people could have coached Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez to big years, right? When Brian was there. But that's the information I'll share with you. It's probably, for many of you, you probably have heard that because it's been rumored on the message boards. There is validity to, I guess what I'm here to say is there is validity to those claims that Iowa is still waiting to see if Brian can find a job somewhere. And a lot of these NFL jobs, including non-playoff teams like New England, a lot of these moves have not occurred yet. So you're not going to see Iowa. You're not going to see Iowa fire Brian. I'll be shocked if that happens. I suppose you could always joke around and speculate and say, well, maybe they're exhausting every last small possibility or chance of trying to get Brian a job somewhere else. And when all those avenues are exhausted, then Kirk lets Brian go or gives him the boot. I don't see that happening. I think they're prepared for either. Okay. And when I say prepared, I think they are prepared for either. I think they've got contingency plans in place for either. And we'll just have to wait and see. The Patriots' job is one to watch. And if Bill O'Brien doesn't get hired there, I wouldn't close the door on it. But I do think something has to happen here within the next week or two. If we start getting into mid-February and nothing's occurred, I mean, most of these NFL jobs, I would have to think we're going to get some clarity on these franchises very soon. So that's what I'll say. Hopefully that gives some people some insight if you didn't have it already. Again, you probably could have put the pieces together without even me talking about it. But I'm just here to say there is validity to those rumors about Brian possibly heading back to New England or somewhere in the NFL, potentially a team that is not competing in the playoffs. I'll say that. So we'll move on from that. If you have a question, you're welcome to call in and ask me a question. I'll try to answer it as best I can based on what I know. And I'm not saying I know a ton. I don't think anybody, I mean, I know that there's been people back and forth, like people in the media. I've had people reach out to me. Hey, this guy says that he doesn't think Brian's leaving. This guy says he's sure Brian's leaving. None of them know for sure at this point, because I don't think, again, I don't think Kirk, Brian, I don't think none of those guys know for sure. Maybe they do. Maybe Kirk and Brian know. Maybe Gary Barta knows what the end result will be. But I do think we're waiting on some decisions in the league. So again, thank you to Danimal for the super chat. Let me get to Chuck, his super chat. No changes will occur. 2023 will be the usual Ferentz standard of excellence. 8-4. The tarp on the practice field reads, preparing to be the best. It's like a Motel 6 claiming Hilton status. Chuck, harsh, but you have every right to feel the way you feel. Thank you for the donation, for the super chat. And thank you to everybody who donates. You're also welcome to donate by means of the description, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. If you want to donate by credit card, click the PayPal link and donate by credit card that way, or by super chat. Super thanks, super stickers, all appreciated here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Let's get to, actually, before we get to our next caller, we've got Erica, we've got CJ, we've got a caller on hold on our phone line who's been waiting for a half an hour. I promise we're going to get to y'all. We got about 40 minutes left in our show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more of your phone calls, more of this discussion, more of our discussion on the offense, the future of Iowa football, specifically staff changes. Welcome to field any calls, any questions you may have that I can answer to some extent, and we'll plow through these next 40 minutes. It's flown by. Thank you to everybody who's been here. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Hawkeye fans, let's talk about health and performance optimization for a moment. Our sponsor, Ascent Nutrition, offers amazing products. It's actually owned by former Iowa graduate Lance Shuttler. Now, I've decided to partner with Ascent Nutrition because of their unique approach to human health. Ascent offers an organically grown, mold and mycotoxin-free coffee. It provides a pure, clean, and rich flavor without those pesticides that most coffees are treated with. They also offer an algae oil DHA, which is used to support brain health, memory, and focus, as well as proper nervous system development in adults, children, athletes, and even pets. Now, lastly, their unique crafted wild pine pollen is used to support cardiovascular health, hormonal function, and a healthy libido. Your purchase not only supports this channel, but the business of a former Hawkeye. Visit goascentnutrition.com or click the link in the description below and use the code Hawkeyes. That's the code Hawkeyes to receive 15% off your total order from Ascent Nutrition. Appreciate everybody being here, and thank you to Ascent Nutrition. As always, check out their website, goascentnutrition.com. They got a new website as well. We'll talk about that here in the future, but Ascent Nutrition has been a big part of what we've been doing here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So thank you to Ascent Nutrition. All right, let's get to our next caller. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. It's Hawkeye Hangout. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Steve out here in San Diego. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Steve? How's sunny San Diego?
It's not too sunny today. It's a little chilly.
It's been rainy out there.
Yeah, it sure has. But roof's dry, so I'm good. I wanted to talk to you about a couple things. First, unless I just got on, so I have no idea what you guys have been talking about. But I had a few people that I would like to put up there for OC.
Okay.
One was Scotty Walden from Austin Pay. He's a head coach there. He's only 33 years old, but he's got 11 years experience. The guy has the best offense of any school. Lobos, he had 48.8 points per game and 581.9 yards per game on total offense. Next guy is Garrett Riley of TCU, assistant coach. He's the younger brother of Lincoln.
He is off the board. He just got hired by Clemson.
Oh shoot. Okay. Brian Hartline.
Hey, but, Brian, listen, Brian Hartline's a good one, but just so you're aware, the coach that got fired from Clemson, he's out there. He's still available, I believe.
Oh, is he? Okay. Okay. I'm just throwing him out the guys. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to call me to hire him, but Mark Whipple, he'd be good.
Where is Mark now that with the coaching changes in Nebraska? Where is he at?
I don't know.
That's a good.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't think he's left. I think.
Well, did Rule retain him? I just don't know. I'm not a Nebraska guy, so I don't. We've got a couple Nebraska guys in our chat. Maybe they can tell us. But the guy that I was thinking of at Clemson, Brandon Streeter, he's a former Clemson quarterback. He's the guy who recruited DJ Uiagalelei and then, of course, Trevor Lawrence. So, I mean, obviously, he gives you experience at the quarterback position, which is gravely needed. And the Clemson offenses, I mean, they've not been up to the Clemson standard, but they're still top 50 nationally. And yes, they have a lot more talent. I get that. He's done quite a bit there at Clemson, and I'm sure he'll get a high major job.
You know, the reason I mentioned the guy from Austin Peay, Walden, you know, he's only 33, but the guy's commanded. He's got an offense, and he's really cool to watch. He has some design plays, and they just move the ball. And I don't think any Hawkeye fan would rule that out. Would want to rule that out.
The only thing I would say on that is, I don't know much about Austin Peay, but my guess is that might be a major jump. But my guess is that if he's going to be an OC at any FBS school, let alone a Power 5 school, he's probably going to have to be a position coach somewhere first, would be my guess.
Well, Gus Malzahn, he was a high school coach before he started Arkansas.
Yeah. Did he go was he the OC at Arkansas?
Did he what?
What was his position? Was he the head coach at Arkansas?
Yeah. And then of course he went on, and he's done himself pretty well.
But he was the OC at Arkansas in 2006.
Right.
So you're right. He jumped from Springdale High School to being the OC. That is but that's not real common, I don't think. But that's a fair point.
No. But this guy's so young, and he is just and he's in their pay grade too. I mean, most of these guys they make about $900, $950 a year, and that's what it's going to take or more. Because why would they leave? You know.
Yeah.
Because I researched all the salaries on because I was a salesman. I was always interested in money. Hugh Freeze from Liberty.
Yeah, he's a big name.
And I don't know. I said Tommy Reese, but those are the guys I had. And before I leave, I want to, since the Hawkeye fans are going to have I was over in LA County for over 30-some years, and you get to hate USC. It's the best team money can buy. And when they win a couple games, you think they're national champs, and they act like it. So they're going to need some. And I was there at the Holiday Bowl when we beat them 55-24.
Yeah.
And 49-24. I'm sorry. And you just got to know a few things to give them an education. Like why did the USC Board of Regents cover the LA Coliseum in cardboard?
Why?
Everybody knows the Trojans are only good on paper. And this is one from our Holiday Bowl. Why do USC fans pour their cereal on a plate? They all lost all their bowls. I'm just spreading the love here.
You are spreading the love. You brought up USC and UCLA. Let me bring up a name that you've probably heard. It's been tossed around there. I'm serious about this. Watch for Jim Svoboda. Okay, he is a guy to watch for. He was the OC at Tulane this past year. Of course, Tulane beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. Sounds like he wasn't calling plays down the stretch, but he is an Iowa guy. He's from Denison, Iowa. Watch for Jim Svoboda. He's a guy to watch for if Brian gets hired somewhere and moves on.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Yeah. The thing about SC, they got wide receivers. They can take the wheel covers off of your car at going down Interstate 80, and they're so fast. But they just never seem to mature. They're just kind of like they can score up real good, and then they let up. It's just like I don't know. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen because they just can't put it together.
Well, Lincoln Riley is 1 year into his tenure there, and Caleb Williams is back. So they're not to be trifled with. Although we can joke around about USC, UCLA and USC being out of the conference is that should inspire a level of concern from fans of teams like Iowa.
Everybody's gonna have to step it up. I mean, they're not much on defense, but they're gonna hang 40 points on you. I mean, they're just crazy.
Yeah, you're right.
That's always been their problem. But here's another one. You know what? If a USC guy and a UCLA guy both graduate the same year, you know what one calls the other one? But the USC guy calls the UCLA guy after 5 years.
What?
Boss. There's a little rivalry here in LA County.
No, I get you.
Yeah, and no, it's just when they come here, I don't know how this is going to shake out. I mean, everybody's going to have to step it up. Iowa's got to get their checkbooks out and get themselves an offensive coordinator, and I think everybody else on assistant coaches ought to get a raise, even if they got to take a couple mil off of Ferentz's pay.
Well,
they need to keep those guys. They're all good. I see nothing but good coaches there. They just need to lose one of them.
There's plenty of money in the program. Keep in mind the TV deal that will be coming here with the additions of UCLA and USC. There's plenty of money to go around. Money is not going to be an issue. Kirk is not going to be taking a pay cut anytime soon.
No, I understand. I'm being a little facetious there, but they can't be tight with it. This is big time. You know, they're getting big time money. They got to spend the bucks. They need to get whoever they can get. How's the quarterback from Michigan? He doesn't. Is he going to start coming over in January? You know, is he in school now or?
Oh, he's there now. Yeah, I'm sure he's enrolled now. He's in Iowa City now, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. How about any new quarterback coming in?
Well, I don't know if you said you just joined it. We had a conversation a little bit ago with Deacon Hill. Deacon Hill's high school coach. So Deacon Hill's a transfer from Wisconsin, who didn't see the field really much of it all at Wisconsin. So he's coming in, of course, and then Marco Lainez will be here, high school kid out of New Jersey. He'll be here in the summer.
Yeah, and that Lavis guy, tell me, they got to give him a ton of credit. He didn't get crazy, but he managed the game well. Yeah, and at the bowl game. Yeah,
he did. He did what he needed to do.
I was impressed. Yeah, he didn't do anything crazy, but then he didn't turn it over either. Something that we've had a lot of problems with lately. So
yeah, you're right.
Anyway, I've probably wasted enough of your time, and I just got on because I was outside. And I remember you guys were on today.
Well, I appreciate you calling, and I'm envious of the San Diego weather, even though it's maybe not the sunniest. I'm not going to tell you to stay warm because that would be irony at its finest.
I don't want to make you feel bad. There's 82 Christmas Day and 75 on the beach. So,
I appreciate you calling, sir, and I appreciate you watching the show all the way out in sunny California.
Okay, well, go Hawks. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Go Hawks. Appreciate our phone call there from our viewer. So out in San Diego, I always love to hear from people across the country. Sam says, just got here, Corey. Curious on what potential NFL job Brian Ferentz would be eligible for. I think I just mentioned that. Maybe this chat was thrown out there before we talked about New England. I don't know if his future, if that happens, if it's on the offensive line, if it's at tight end, it's probably one of those two, right? But, I mean, he did have some success at New England, whether that was, you credit him for that or not. He was the tight ends coach for a couple of years, and they had pretty good tight ends those 2 years, right, with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. So I think it's feasible to think it could happen, and it sounds like that is what is potentially what's going to happen if the right moves take place prior to a Brian move, if that makes sense. Let's get to Erica, who's been on hold. Erica, welcome to the show.
Hello, how's it going?
Going good. Appreciate you hanging out on hold for so long.
No problem. So I just wrote down a few questions here. A few of my original questions have been answered, but I still have some more. One thing that struck me when we just heard from Deacon's coach from high school, I think he said, or from even earlier than that, he mentioned the Budmeyer connection. I seem to remember that Cade McNamara also had a connection to Budmeyer. Is that true?
Yeah, Cade's brother was actually committed to Colorado State when Budmeyer was the OC at Colorado State. And then, of course, Budmeyer was fired. And I believe that's when Cade's brother left for UTEP or UTSA, one of those Texas schools.
Okay. So the reason I'm bringing that up, it's a pattern. I'm starting to think that maybe they're going to, if nothing else, hand off the quarterback coaching duties to Budmeyer at this point. Obviously, I want Brian gone, just like everybody else or just like most people. But I'm starting to think that if they don't get to do that, at least maybe they'll take away the quarterback duties. I don't know, though, if there's rules about how many people you can have on staff and stuff like that. So just kind of wanted to know your take there.
I've given that some thought, and I saw somebody in the chat ask a similar question. If Brian isn't fired or demoted, I'm hoping they bring in Budmeyer to assist him. I thought he was already there to assist him.
Yeah, he is. I'm talking like, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Corey. He is assisting him, but what I'm talking about is him actually becoming the quarterback coach.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I'm just being snarky. So yeah, I mean, that may happen. It obviously wouldn't look great when you promote Brian to QB's coach and then 1 year remove those privileges from him. But then what do you do with Brian? Like there's a maximum number of assistants you can have on staff. So you can't just promote Budmeyer. Someone else is going to have to go.
Okay.
So who do you let go? I mean, what position does Brian coach then? He's the OC, but he's going to coach a position. So is it tight ends coach? Do you fire Abdul Hodge after 1 year? Or you
I don't think we should be firing Hodge. I think, look, he's done a good job. I think. I don't think that's the move to make. Yeah, I don't know. That's the $100 question. I don't know if the chat has some ideas there, but
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Budmeyer. I don't think Budmeyer is the next OC. I don't think Budmeyer is the next QB's coach, unless Brian moves on and perhaps there are other changes. But if they double down with Brian, I don't think Budmeyer. I just don't know how you do that unless there's other staff. Like I said, other staff changes coming. For some reason, Abdul Hodge takes off, and then you can just put Brian back at tight ends coach and make Budmeyer the QB's coach. First of all, I don't have a lot of confidence in that move. If that were to happen, I saw the comment here from C-Dub Hawk. Do you like his resume enough to be the OC? Well, no, I don't have anything against Budmeyer. Coach JT Stone, I mean, a few minutes ago, talked Budmeyer up, and I'm sure he's a very nice guy. He's married to a Hartley girl, so that's a plus for him. But I mean, he was a quarterback's coach at Wisconsin, had some success there when he was there at that position. He goes to Colorado State. He's there 1 year. They were bad offensively, and that's all we know about him as far as experience coaching, being the OC. I don't know why. I don't think that is a logical move. I don't think that's a smart move to just make him the OC based on a resume that's just slightly better than Brian's.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And we have to remember he got fired from his OC position previously. So why would we hire somebody who's been fired? That doesn't make sense to me. I think if we're going to promote Budmeyer in any way, it's QB coach or he just stays as he is as an assistant. I think those are the only two options for him. But as you said, there's the problem with, well, who are we going to fire? Because if we promote Budmeyer to the QB coach, who has to leave? And I don't think it's going to be Hodge either, because he's done well. I'm sure a lot of people have seen him on Twitter. He's, making jokes about how these people didn't settle. Like, Kane made the comment about settling and that. He has too much team spirit. He's too much of a Hawkeye to be like, okay, I'll leave because we need to promote somebody else on the other side of the ball, on this side of the ball. I don't think he's going to do that.
Well, Kirk, let's give Kirk some credit too. I mean, we can rip on Kirk for the situation with Brian, but I think you would agree, Erica. Deep down inside, Kirk is a good man, and he's not.
Yeah, definitely.
He's not going to fire Abdul Hodge.
No way. No way. And too, I think also, and this is aside from other questions I had, but I don't understand why some people, like when we're talking about coach's performance or regardless if it's position coach or coordinator or whatever. I'm not sure why people seem to think just because we're looking at their ability to coach or their ability to be, good staff, that has nothing to do with their personality. We're not saying they're horrible people. We're just saying they're not effective at what they're doing at their job. And in the real world, that's not football. If you're not good at your job, you get let go. So I just don't see how this is different, but I'm not going to go there because I've ranted about this so many times. I'm sure people are tired of me.
But you know why it's different.
I know why it's different because of nepotism.
Well,
I know exactly why it's different, but I'm too much of an idealist, perhaps, maybe. But anyway,
listen, it doesn't take. I mean, if I had a lizard, the lizard could tell what's going on at Iowa right now.
Absolutely, absolutely,
I'm not taking anything away from you, but I mean, I think everybody knows why the situation is here.
Yeah.
And although Kirk would never admit it because you're just not going to admit that, it's obvious. So it's unfortunate. And yes, I've had people say, well, nepotism happens everywhere. That's true. The problem with it, though, is when it backfires.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, this is not a private corporation. This is not a private business.
It's not really a business so much.
Well, it is.
It is and it isn't.
College football is a big business, but
yeah,
this is a state university.
Right.
And you don't have a right to use nepotism to promote your son and to engage his career. That goes beyond the rules of ethics, right? And that's why there's rules in place against these things, but they aren't enforced here.
I'm seeing Zach's comment here. He says, this is easy. If your car's motor had issues over and over again, but you keep taking it to the same mechanic and the same problem keeps arising, when do you go to a new mechanic? You can't compare that to this at all. That's got nothing to do with nepotism, that comment. That just means he's incompetent, which we know Brian is incompetent as an OC. So I see the link you're trying to make, but I don't think that's an effective comparison at all.
Well, isn't Zach just saying that why are we continuing to double down with Brian? Isn't that basically what he's saying?
Yeah, but I mean, like we just said, this is football. This is a university thing.
If Brian, you know this, Erica, if Brian had come here and every offense is top 30, top 40 in the country since he's been here, and he's just the next great thing, none of us are complaining about it. None of us.
Yeah.
And that's still nepotism.
Yeah.
It's still so it's all about, does it work or does it not work? It hasn't worked. If Kirk took a huge risk doing what he did, it
backfired.
It has completely backfired, and I don't have sympathy for the guy. I love Kirk. I really do. I love Kirk, but I've lost some respect for him. Given this, I've talked about that. It doesn't mean I don't respect him. I've lost a degree of respect for him, and the bottom line is now he's in a very difficult position. We all know what the right thing to do is, but if you were in his position, would you be able to do that, Erica?
Well, I wouldn't have done it to start with, to be very honest with you. I know better because I've actually worked for a company where I'm not going to go into it. That's private. Never mind. I also wanted to make another comment. This person, who is this bimbo on the line? Good Lord. Why don't you call in? Let's hear your opinion. That's what I think of that comment. But to go back to the conversation we were having, I just think part of it, I don't know if they're completely unable to read the room. Like, and when I say they, I mean Kirk and, the university and Gary Barta. I think either they're unable to read the room or they don't want to. And I think it's the second one. I don't think they want to read the room.
Yeah, I think, Kirk's not a dummy, right? Kirk and Gary, they understand. They understand the situation. And I think that the biggest person this falls on, even maybe more so than Kirk, is Gary Barta, right? Because
he's allowing it to happen.
He allowed it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe Kirk has an issue making a decision that's logical, that's right, based on who his son is. But at some point, Gary had to sign off on that, and that falls on Gary Barta. And
clearly he can get away with it. That's another problem for another call. The other thing too, I wanted to ask. I've heard this a lot before, and I just want to bring it up again. Why would Cade come here if we weren't going to change something? And I think I might have asked this before here. I'm not sure if I've asked it here or just on Twitter or wherever else, but I just kind of want to get opinions on that because honestly, I don't, and I hate saying this, but it's the truth. I don't see why someone of his caliber would come here if there weren't going to be changes made.
Well,
and that's just being honest. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or mean or anything like that. I'm just being realistic here.
I can tell you that there are rumors that Cade was promised a change, but those are rumors, and until it happens, I can't say that that's for certain, but you are not off in your train of thought, and I have a hard time seeing the idea that he would have come here without some promises. I think Tyler Barnes or Kirk said something in their signing day press conference that, no promises were made to anybody. They can say that, but you're absolutely right. I think it's hard to believe that Cade would have signed up to come here without some promise of change. And like I say, the rumor is out there that Cade was assured that there would be a change at OC prior to spring practice. That's
Okay.
that's the word out there. But again, I'm not pushing that as fact because I that's kind of hearsay. So
Right.
until it happens, like I said earlier, Erica, I do have absolute reason to believe that Iowa has prepared for Brian to leave. So that is not. I'm not going to call that a rumor. That I believe that to be fact.
Right.
That Brian is attempting to leave again. That is, I can say that with almost 100% authority that is occurring. Whether or not it actually happens, I don't know, but I just can tell you Iowa's aware of it. They're prepared for it, and the Cade situation will be interesting. If for some reason Brian can't get hired and Cade was promised something, what happens then? Fair question to be had, and we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Well, the way it'll happen if there's no change at OC and or the scheme with Cade is he'll either, go to the NFL after the one season or he'll go back to the transfer portal. It's that simple.
Could happen. Yeah.
And again, I say to this, what's this person's name? This Avita Dolares person. I think you need to call in if you're going to keep making smart remarks. That's just my opinion. Thank you very much for that. So anyway, my last question is, I think we need to start, not we, but the coaches need to start thinking about possibly converting some other players to wide receivers or to other positions of need if we don't get more players from the portal or from the next open portal. I don't even know what to call it, what the proper terminology is. But if we don't get any other people or any other players in positions of need, would it be possible that they start looking at converting people, kind of like what they're attempting to do with Logan Jones and what they did do with Linderbaum?
That's always a possibility. I mean, they need help everywhere right now on offense. So, but I mean, switching, there's certain examples like the Ronnie Harmon situation where guys can switch to a different position on offense, especially a different skill position. But I don't know of anybody specifically that I would look at and say, hey, this guy could switch. I brought up just total speculation that maybe Devin Hilson, who's buried on the depth chart at running back, could end up maybe being playing some receiver at Iowa. Last I knew, he was practicing with the DBs, so I don't know if that's a permanent move, but I don't know. I mean, that's a better question for Kirk. I really have no idea who they're targeting to potentially switch positions. They've got pieces coming in along that old line, whether you're talking about Leighton Jones at center or their top target from Trevor Lauk from their highest rated recruit of the 23 class, Trevor Lauk from Indiana. So I don't know. I don't have to answer that question. That'd be a better question for Kirk.
Okay. Well, that is all I had. Thanks for taking my questions, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Don't let the haters get to you, Erica.
No, it's just if someone's calling me a bimbo, maybe they should call in and see what they have to say. That's what I think.
It's probably a 5-year-old with a keyboard that has to Google what a word means before he types it up. So
yeah, that's possible. Maybe he doesn't know what the word bimbo means. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, have a great evening.
You, Erica. Appreciate it. All right. Yes, we're going to try to wrap this thing up in the next 12 to 13 minutes, Brian. I know we got wrestling. People are wanting to watch that, so we'll try to get through this here in the next 12 minutes or so. King Davis. Nepotism is a horrible act. Iowa Farmer Blake, do you even see Iowa in the Big Ten Championship game in the next 10 years once divisions are scrapped? Going to be tough. Hard to project that far forward, Blake, but that's why I believe a major change like offensive coordinator, which is the second most important position on a college football staff, it needs to be made now, not in a year from now. Now, a big part of the reason why. DDB wants me to get Brian to come on the show. Brian is welcome here anytime, and I will be absolutely respectful to him. Yeah, we're gonna put our user. You're not going to use words. You're not going to use words like that to Erica or to anybody. If you say nasty stuff, you're going to get put in a timeout like a child. And then if you do it again, you're going to get banned. I mean, just that's all there is to it. And the reason I didn't do it earlier, sorry, Erica, I wasn't that far down in the chat. I got behind the chat. Pugmaster, thank you for the super sticker, Pugmaster. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting the channel. CJ has been waiting on hold forever. CJ, welcome to the show.
Hello, Corey. How are you?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm the Sports Guy 70 guy on Twitter that always comments.
Ah, okay. Now I can put a face to the Twitter handle.
So a few questions. First, are you worried that if Cade and let's say Eric All and all these guys will promise something, are you worried if they don't get what they were promised that they're just gonna turn around and tell recruits, hey, don't go to Iowa because they can't keep their word or anything like that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we're operating on the assumption that they were promised something. And until I mean, that the window for that promise to be fulfilled, if that promise occurred, has not closed yet. So let's just wait and see what happens with Brian before we start talking about that, because I don't have any reason to think that they won't fulfill the promise. If the promise was made, we're assuming that happened.
Yeah. Real quick.
Again, they're making they are making. There is the attempt is there. I made that clear that the attempt is there.
Transfer to basketball really quickly.
Okay.
Do you think that that Notre Dame will kind of pursue Fran and be like, well, NIL is better, because I know he's been frustrated at Iowa about the whole thing. So do you think that'll be one reason to push him there, is maybe they can be like, hey, we will open up the books for whoever you want to bring in?
If they make a push for Fran, I don't know if they're interested in hiring a guy who's 73 or 63 years old, but if they are making a push to Fran, that would be a reason to push, because Iowa has not been very cooperative in some regards with NIL. That's a fair point.
And then also back to football, do you think that Kirk is doing this because in his mind he thinks that Brian is the next head coach, or do you think he's just doing this until he's gone and then he knows Brian is gone? Because it feels like he thinks himself that when you see him crying now, it feels like he thinks it's coming to an end and that he's just setting Brian up. But the thing is if Gary Butter just uses the nepotism and just goes to Brian, nobody's going to go to the game.
I don't think Kirk has. I would find it hard to believe that Kirk still believes that Brian might be the next head coach. I don't think that's probably on Kirk's mind. I think, to put this very simply, blood is thicker than water. Kirk loves his son, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously there's nothing wrong with loving your child. But he did something, as we said earlier, 6 years ago, that has come back to bite him, and it's very hard to fire your son. And that's all there is to it. I'm not going to question Kirk's values any further than that, because I don't think it's got anything to do with values. It's got to do with he made a mistake. And, sometimes you walk down a dark alley, you don't get mugged, and you look back and say, well, that was a dumb decision, but it worked out for the best. Sometimes you walk down that dark alley and you get mugged.
Yeah.
And in this case, Iowa got mugged by nepotism.
Do you know when this lawsuit's going to end? I know it's been going for 3 years now. Do you know, is there supposed to be a case this year, or? That
I don't know. I just know that it'll probably end up being settled out of court. I don't think it'll go to trial, but these things take a long, long time. And
yeah,
I don't think any of us expected, or even, I'm sure maybe some people thought this could happen, but back in 2020 when this lawsuit started, I don't think any of us thought we'd be in this position where the lawsuit is part of the reason what Brian is so hard to hire, and it's just been a mess. But he's part of the problem, right? Regardless of what true in the 2020 issue, regardless what was true in the 2020 allegations that led to the lawsuit, it's fair to point out that his performance or lack thereof on the football field has also made him hard to hire. It's not just the lawsuit.
Yeah. Two more questions. First, do you think the boosters have any like power over Barter? Do you think Barter like has like the final say? Because like I felt like sooner or later the boosters is just gonna be like, well, we're gonna stop paying our money until something changes.
Well, eventually that will happen, right? I mean, eventually the big money people will do that. And there are some big money people who are fed up now and who were fed up months and months ago, but it has to be enough. And of course the big donors are the ones that really matter. But I can tell you a couple of examples of people I know who are big donors. I don't know them personally, but I can tell you on good authority through people who do know them that they have basically said, we're not giving money until something changes. So that's happening. But is it happening to the extent where it makes a difference? I don't know. But ultimately money talks, right? So like I say, the efforts are being made. I think still, even though my whole point of this stream was to be able to have this dialogue and have this conversation because people haven't been able. I've had people talking. Why aren't you talking about the Brian situation? What do you know? I don't. I'll say this. The information that I shared earlier is not top secret, right?
Yeah.
So, like I said, I have reason to believe that they're still making attempts to move Brian along. But we just have to be patient with it because, unfortunately, as wrong as it is, it sounds like it's somewhat dependent on an NFL team hiring him. And that's not right because what Iowa does should not be dependent on another organization doing something. Iowa should do what's best for the program. But it's Kirk's son. That's the bottom line. So it is what it is.
And last thing, do you think they go off of selling tickets as like the success of the coaches? Like I know like last year they like sold out every game, so that could be an argument that like, oh well, they sold out every game. But the thing is like season ticket holders, if they don't renew their tickets, they lose those seats. So like I'm a season ticket holder, so if you don't renew those tickets, you lose those seats. So it's kind of an incentive on, well, you either go or you buy the tickets and you waste your money and you don't go. But it just feels like them using that argument, oh well, they sold out every game. There's other stuff to do at the game, and like last year, I know some people that went to the game that didn't go because of the coaching. They went for the wave, the atmosphere, and all that over the actual like product that was on the field.
Yeah, I think that's all fair.
So, well, I'm gonna let you go. Have a good night.
Thank you, CJ. Appreciate the phone call. All right, Pugmaster says, anyone have the link for the premium membership? I just threw it up in the chat. All right, just threw it up in the chat. So click on that. Not obviously, don't click the screen, but click in the live chat. If you want to become a premium subscriber, let's get to our phone line. Boy, this poor caller has been waiting on hold for over an hour. Caller, thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Don't worry about me. Corey Lomansky got his dinner cooked.
Yeah, you'd have been able to tenderize some meat in a crock pot with as long as you've been waiting on hold.
Hey, but I did do something productive. I went to my closet and looked at all my shirts, and I really like my shirts, but they're a lot like the shirt you're wearing tonight. And people took a shot at you. They're taking a shot at Erica. They'll probably take a shot at me for being old alumnus.
Oh, I loved the comment. Where did the comment go? Somebody said, "Oh, here it is. HROT88. Did you steal that shirt from your grandpa?" Well, if I had, I'd have worn it proud. Anything from your grandpa, you ought to be proud of, right, Tony? I see Tony in the queue. Are you proud of your grandpa? Yeah, he's nodding his head. He's proud of his grandpops. Anyways, go ahead, Lomansky.
Boy, you're so much classier with your comments than I am about Gary Barta. I gotta be more like you.
Oh well, get me off the air. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, it's hard for me to get a classy comment about Gary Barta, and I'm glad that over time, and you know me, what I'm going to bring up, because it isn't brought up enough. We pay a lot of money to the guy that's supposed to have some kind of outlook for us on view up on the plane 20,000 miles up. But I'm going to touch on that just quickly because you've been on here almost 2 hours and my dinner's gone, but I got to do dishes. Trying to get you to laugh, Corey. But
thank you.
You know, to me, I pay attention to the national comment, the national ESPN narrative. I'm so proud of the Sacramento Kings, the number one offense in the NBA. Keegan Murray got a shout out from the main ESPN guys. And Luka's playing for the Timberwolves. You've got a national narrative about respect for stress on young athletes with Coach McCaffrey's son, P-Mac. There's so much great national narrative from the basketball program that I get a little irritated from some of the comments in the chat. So don't feel bad, Erica, sometimes when you're making good comments and people are just haters. Erica follows the Pac-12 network. She makes good comments not only to your podcast, but with Mark Rogers also. And then let's look at the national narrative. Sometimes I try to get a perspective from outside my own prejudices, and you do a very good job of that, Corey. And what's happening nationally for 2 seasons is comment about the terrible offensive narrative. And let's put ourselves in a high school kid or a junior high kid or a grade school kid compared to the basketball narrative. We can no longer we can't afford it. It's like your checking account. We can't afford it anymore. We have to put out a national narrative that's positive. We have the opportunity. And I've been to Los Angeles a few times, and UCLA and USC is coming. And so let's kind of really understand what's coming in 2024 and 2025, folks. And Gary Barta better understand, even though he's retirement age, not only have we been witness to the from the Hawkeye of the storm, we're going to get the California, San Antonio or Santa Fe winds from the West Coast, and we're going to be challenged. And so I know how you feel strongly about these are decisions more important for 2 and 3 years out, not just next year or this year. I guess it would be this season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This is not a move that I have nothing against Brian Ferentz. It's a business move. You've got to make a business move, because if you don't, I mean, you know this, Lemansky, if you make any level of business or operation, if you're not forward in your thinking, right? If you're not proactive, you're probably going to be reactive, and that usually doesn't work. And you just don't want to be reactive when it comes to all the changes that are coming down the pipeline in a year.
And most people can't remember this, but I remember when Bob Cummings beat Iowa State. I think it was the inaugural Iowa State football game that was canceled and was brought up again. And he beat Iowa State, and everybody not worshipped, that's too strong, but everybody was like, wow, Bob got some talent. Very next year, he had a bad season, and the greatest athletic director in the history of Iowa, the old Michigan man, Bump Elliott, he fired and brought in Hayden Fry. And, sometimes change is good. And the only thing I don't want to go away and change is Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm, because good therapy to all us fans sitting out here that try to make change the best we can for what tools we got. And I think this will be a historical decision. And not only I think it's going to affect, and I do like Kirk, but it's going to affect his legacy. This is going to be one of those he can't just snap back at Ohio State presser, because he's, the most wins in Iowa history, and he can get away with that. And I'm going to call it crap, because I've never seen him do that. And even Kirk's human snapping back at those Ohio State questions after he lost Ohio State. And that's such a sad thing to put up on his bulletin board. So I guess I'm gonna hang up, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say we will see changes to the Iowa offense to the satisfaction of the Iowa fan base. Because if they aren't made, Corey Brada is going to just disconnect my phone line because I probably won't behave. But thanks for all you do, and I think you should be proud of your relationships with. You're connected to Iowa basketball, Iowa football. Loved your Coach Stone call-in. You're doing a lot of good things that we don't have access to, and more, I don't really pay attention to the mainstream Iowa media because I want it straight. I don't need no cheerleader in the freaking TV or radio. I need them on the sidelines. I don't need a cheerleader with myopic glasses talk about where we're at with Iowa football. We're under siege from Wisconsin and Nebraska. Let's be honest about that. And I tell you what, I think they've got two good coaches. I'll hang up and listen to the rest of the show and hang in there. And I'd wear that shirt again next time.
We'll do that. Thank you, Lemansky. Always enjoy Lemansky calling in. And Rusty, 515-635-1601. I promised to be wrapped up by 8. We're going a little over time, but if you want to call in briefly, you certainly can. 515-635-1601. Want to get to a couple things real quickly. Breehawk65, thank you, Breehawk, for the compliment. Thank you for being here. A7XFOREVER0031. I don't know if I missed this, but who would be the favorite to take over as OC if Brian Ferentz moves on? I'm going to probably talk about this in a future show, and part of me kind of wanted to wait to see if the move actually happened. I guess we could talk about it prior. I named at least one person that I think is a person to definitely watch, and that is Jim Svoboda, the guy from Tulane, who was the OC this past year. Like it or not, Paul Chryst is a guy to watch for, folks. Just telling you that right now. Paul Chryst is a guy to watch for, whether you like that or not. And I think, I'm not making any predictions, but I think that's a fair question at this point. And to our caller who just called in, we're going to put you on hold. We'll be right back with you. Let's get to Tony, who's been on hold for quite some time. Tony, welcome.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Before I get to you, Tony, I forgot. I got to get to the super chat.
Oh,
thank you, Tyler says, thanks, Corey, for all you do. Thank you for the donation, Tyler. And then, of course, Kelly with the super sticker as well. Thank you, Kelly. And appreciate everybody who's donated. I feel like we kind of, once you hit the end of football season, people kind of tune out. And I appreciate the people who are here, and including you, Tony, but people who want to support the channel, because in order to be back next fall, we need support in the spring and summer. So anyways, go ahead, Tony.
Well, I've always told you have to pay the bills before you talk to me. You got to pay those bills somehow.
Pay those bills. I just paid them.
Good. A question or two I had for you. Number one, have you discussed the Big Ten commissioner job being opened and the impact that could have on both the football and the basketball program? I guess I just said that because I don't know if do you know the connection between Kevin Warren and Fran?
I do.
Okay. And I mean, I think you could say Fran may have had some leeway the past few years from the Big Ten office.
In what way?
Well, I mean, people could have said, like, with the most recent incident in the Indiana game, could he have gotten a suspension or not? I mean,
but Fran has been.
He's been pretty mild.
Has been suspended, and I don't know if he's been suspended under Kevin Warren, but I don't think he's been treated fairly by officials since.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, by the Big Ten office
officials. Well, but those are Big Ten officials.
That's true. I was meaning more so with suspensions and stuff like that.
Well, what would he have been? But what
I guess
he gotten suspended for the crossing midcourt against Indiana? You think that should have been a suspension?
You never know. You never know.
Well, I don't believe that. That's. I think it was dumb on his part, and it's a technical foul, but it's not a suspension.
Yeah. I'm just saying that from the basketball viewpoint, because I know everyone's going to focus on the football viewpoint with who the new commissioner is. But for the commissioner that we currently had, we could probably not have had a better one that was basketball friendly towards the school.
That could be.
I guess that sounds good. Yeah, and he was good friends with Chris Collins too. Chris Collins was the ball boy for that same Penn team that Fran and Kevin were on.
That's right. Yeah. Chris Collins has got some really unique connections. I mean, he was obviously involved with the Chris Street production on Wednesday. He's got some unique connections to Iowa.
I've listened on and off, and I heard you mention, I forgot the guy's name, the guy who went down to Florida, and he's a basketball caller too. And you're talking about in case Fran goes. It was about an hour ago. Doug. We were talking to Doug.
Florida? Oh, he went down.
Yeah, yeah, he went down to Florida for the basket. The
right. Yep.
And you were talking about the possibility of Fran leaving. I think it's zero. I really do. It's just because the direction that Notre Dame is headed is a full rebuild, and I don't think they're going to try.
How can you say zero? Zero? You think there's zero? I mean, like, think about what you're saying there. This is Margaret's former school.
Mm-hmm.
Fran coached there. It's one of the most prestigious universities, or perceived to be one of the most prestigious universities. He's getting to the point where it probably is the only way he leaves is for a job like Notre Dame. You think 0% chance he leaves?
I think if he's going to leave, I think it's going to be to one of the Philly schools, and it'd be Villanova first. I think that's the one that's at the top of the list. If Villanova, because he's a Philly guy, I know he has zero connection to Villanova, but that's my guess. I just think, because I think Margaret's family's from Minnesota. She did go to Notre Dame, but part of the draw to Iowa is I think her family's from Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, but I'm just saying, like,
I know
if he has an opportunity to go there for 5 years and she has to be away from family for, I don't know maybe her family's not in good health. I don't know. I hope they aren't, but yeah, I don't know. That's and Commander Cody brings up, it'd be tough to leave Pat in school and Jack on the way. Well, Pat's not. If Pat would just
leave, yeah. Yeah,
that's just what would happen, right? You know that,
yeah.
Tony, right? Patrick would just transfer to Notre Dame, and Jack would go to Notre Dame. He'd play at Notre Dame. I don't think that's the big thing here. Like, I don't think moving Jack is that big of a deal. Jack's not 10 years old. He's in high school.
No, but Iowa has shown Fran a lot of, I'm losing the word, but like faith or whatever, like confidence in him. That they've stuck through him in some tough times when people thought maybe he should go or whatever. And, he's had a little bit of not maybe a hot seat internally, but externally people aren't happy with the lack of March Madness success, which I get because he's had many years to get it. And I get it, but that is what it is.
Can you imagine how hypocritical it would be, though, if Gary Barta fired Fran for not making the Sweet 16 and retained Kirk?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Kirk hasn't won a Big Ten championship since 2004, and his offense is manned by a guy who, well, we won't even go there. But that would be.
I know what you mean.
Gary is the problem with the move with Kirk is, I think it makes it very hard on him making other decisions.
Yeah. I did want to bring that up, not because I think there's a chance, because as I said, I think there's 0% chance, but there's two names I wanted to float out that I don't know if were mentioned that I would really love Iowa to contact for basketball coaches, if that happens. We're playing the hypothetical game. Number one, Chris Jans, the Mississippi State coach who's from Iowa. He did well at New Mexico State, and now he's in his first year at Mississippi State.
Okay.
And the second one is Steve Forbes, who's the current coach at Wake Forest, and he's from Lone Tree. And I believe he was at one of our non-conference games. It might have even been Eastern Illinois. He was in attendance because he was on break back with his family in Lone Tree. And he went to watch an Iowa game as a head coach from another team who
and they lost.
And they lost. But I mean, those are two names I'd like to see them go after.
Right.
And I don't know if it was the Eastern Illinois or the Southeast Missouri State. It was one of them that was over Christmas break. It's just Eastern Illinois sticks out, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Before I let you go, Tony, do you have any final thoughts on tomorrow's game? I know you think they're going to win, but we haven't really spent time talking about Iowa, Ohio State. Did you see the stat? Somebody tweeted this yesterday, that how well Iowa shoots threes in Columbus. Did you see my response to that?
It was 29. It was like you take out one game and it was like 29% regularly or something like that.
I'll read you. So they don't actually shoot the three ball at Ohio State traditionally. So obviously last year they went 10-24, great year. But that was, am I looking at this correct? 2020. I may have my stats wrong. Actually, I'm showing, I could be wrong on this. I have to go back and validate this because I'm seeing One of the last 2 years they shot 6 of 21. The other year they shot 10 of 24. So I'll have to validate this. But they had the 1 year of 10 to 24, then 6 of 21, 6 of 19, 6 of 20, 3 of 12, 5 of 17. They had 1 year where they shot 8 of 22. But I mean, for the most part, they haven't had since 2014. They've only had one time where they've went to Ohio State and made more than 6 threes in a game. Which, I mean, it's hard shooting on the road in any Big Ten venue. But the 10 to 24, I mean, they played well these last 2 trips to Columbus. It's going to be hard to win 3 straight there. But Ohio State's in a weird spot right now. They're losing a lot. But it's also like we saw Maryland beat Michigan last night. It's just one of those things where teams this time of year, just when you think they're down and out in the Big Ten, they beat somebody. That's what Maryland did last night. I could see Ohio State doing it tomorrow.
The thing that gives me optimism, and more optimism than probably most people think, is Ohio State is on a huge losing streak. And they have, and I'm going to say this with an asterisk, or however you say that, they should have lost the Rutgers game where the guy was out of bounds, and they completely missed that call.
Yeah.
You count that as a loss, they have not won a game that's been decided by 5 points or less. They do not perform when crunch time happens and you need to get buckets down the stretch.
I will be interested to see how Iowa handles Zed Key. That's my big question, because he's a big guy, and I don't mean tall. I mean, he, like Hunter Dickinson's tall. Zed Key's big. Like, he's just a big dude. And Philip Rebracha, as physical as he is, he's going to give up some in size to Zed Key.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my big question. Can Philip Rebracha stay out of foul trouble tomorrow? Because if he doesn't, it changes everything. And then you're having to go with Riley Mulvey, and that's, you don't want to play with that. I know Riley's played admirably when he's been called upon, but I think keeping Philip Rebracha out of foul trouble will be the key for a lot of these games down the stretch.
100%. And you've said that, and I 100% agree with you. Philip is our most valuable player, or most irreplaceable.
Indispensable is the word.
Indispensable. Yeah.
Yes.
That's like
1,000. It's not even close.
But I mean, you were saying it before it was plain as day obvious to everyone. Now it's plain as day obvious to everyone. You were saying this back in the non-conference season when people were still, saying Murray because he's obviously the best player.
He's the best player, but that doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't mean he's the most indispensable. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you saw it before everyone. I'll say that
thank you,
because no one was saying that. And I'm still. I told you on Twitter, and you said it earlier. I'm still standing by my 5-0 prediction, even though the Northwestern game got moved back. I will still hold true to, if they lose tomorrow's game, my prediction is nullified. They got the first 4, but if they lose tomorrow, I'll take it as a loss.
Sounds good, sir. Well, we'll chat with you after the game.
Yes. Thanks for your time, and you have a good Friday evening. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you, Tony. And Chad, does Pat Mack start tomorrow? I would be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked given how Fran operates, but I think it'd be nice to get him off the bench. But I'm not in Fran's head. I don't know the situation up and down like Fran probably does, but I think it'd be a good idea if Patrick plays tomorrow. I think it'd be a good idea to bring him off the bench. That's just my 2 cents. 1977 Punks Unite. Will the lawsuit prevent Brian from being hired? I don't know that it prevents him from being hired. It does make it more difficult. We've talked about that. I think we talked about some candidates here. Maybe I covered this question earlier. Joey, any updates on the Gaddis developments? I think those were all rumors that Gaddis was possibly a candidate for the Iowa job. I'm not aware of him being a potential candidate for the Iowa job. So I would guess there's nothing to that. But, he also has some potential baggage that he'd be carrying here. I don't know if Kirk would take that on. Pugmaster, thank you for becoming a premium member here on YouTube. Appreciate that. T Hawkeye, fire Fran. He wants him fired. Right to your opinion. I'm not going to say that because I don't believe it necessarily. S Dave 007, hit the like button. Yes, everybody who's here, please hit that thumbs up button. Let's get to our caller. We're going overtime, folks. Let's get to our caller. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hello.
Hello. You're on the air.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is Doug from Tucson.
Hey, Doug from Tucson.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say on the Brian situation, I read a while back on Google where someone stated that Gary Barta was going to fire the president of the university and promote Brian to that position because that's the only way they could get rid of him. But that really was out there. But it is kind of sad that we're such a joke to so many people.
Well, as I said earlier, the door is not closed on Brian leaving. I'm telling you that right now.
Right. Can only hope. But my bigger question is, and I lived in Nebraska for 20 years, but I despise Nebraska. Both my boys are big Nebraska fans. But why is it that they're pulling in all these 4-star portal guys from Georgia and everywhere else? I mean, what is the pull to Nebraska? I don't understand.
I mean,
it.
Nebraska
They
does
don't
have
put anybody in there.
You got to admit,
What's that?
Nebraska has great history, right? They do have great history,
but you know, Minnesota had a great history at one time. They won more championships than Nebraska did.
Well,
but you know,
Nebraska's got
that was in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, when does that negate itself?
Well, I think having a former NFL guy, although a guy who didn't succeed in the NFL, a guy who was just the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, I think that probably is somewhat appealing. And
Yeah.
I mean, I still think Nebraska is one of the best jobs in college football. I really believe that. So you may not agree with that, but that is, I'm sure there is some. I mean, Cole in our chat here, he's a Nebraska fan. I think there's some appeal just from who Nebraska is and how big Nebraska football is in the state. And I mean, I think Iowa could have maybe more zest than we give ourselves credit for. We give the Iowa program credit for, but Nebraska embraces that. And once they get a guy who gets the job done as a head coach, I think we'll probably see that come to fruition, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's odd to me because most of these kids that are playing right now, they weren't around when Nebraska was good. So, how are they even realizing some of this? But
yeah, I mean, Cole brings up
know.
NIL. I mean, NIL. I mean, that's a factor as well. Name, image, and likeness. That's a pull with most schools now. I mean, with most high major athletes, especially in the portal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when I worked there, my cubicle, my office had all Hawkeye stuff, and everybody, they just crucified me. But I held my own.
Attaboy.
Yeah. Well, we can only hope. This quarterback situation sounds really good with Cade and this new guy you were talking about. That sounds pretty good as well. So
fresh blood is
that's all
always
we can
good,
do,
and they've
Paul.
got a guy in Cade who is seasoned. He's a veteran. He's had success at the highest of levels, and he's had good coaching. So what more do you want from a guy in the portal?
Yeah. And then too, if Brian is gone, what are the chances that Kirk can get along with a really top-notch, proven
Well,
OC guy?
if it's Paul Christ, he'll get along with him just fine because Paul Christ and Kirk are very good friends.
There you go.
Yeah,
that would be good. Yeah,
but I don't know. That's
Okay.
a debate that people have had for years, that Kirk will only hire somebody he's very, very comfortable with, and there's probably truth to that. But yeah, I mean, like Cole's, he's not going to hire Scott Frost because I don't think that would work.
No,
there are certain
no.
guys that's why I don't think Josh Gaddis is probably a reasonable possibility. I just don't know if, given what I have heard about Josh Gaddis, I don't know that he fits in culture wise. So
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll know here. I really do think we're going to know what's going to happen here within 2 weeks. I would guess by the end of next week, we'll probably know.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope he does find a place where he can go and succeed. I really do.
I hope he finds a place just so he can be gone from here.
Yeah,
I'll be quite frank. That's how I feel. how I feel.
Yep. Yeah.
I wish him the
Understand
best
it.
wherever he goes. I wish him the best wherever he goes, just not here.
Yes. Right. Correct. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir.
You bet. Have a good one.
You as well.
Bye.
All right, let's get to our final caller of the night. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Rusty. How are you, Corey?
Good. How are you, Rusty?
It's Rusty. How are you, Corey?
Can you hear me, Rusty?
I can hear you. Fantastic. Hey, sorry I didn't call in earlier. Yeah.
What?
Corey.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, Rusty.
Perfect. Hey, where are we at? Where are we at with the discussion on the offensive coordinator?
Where are we at with it? Well, I think we're going to know something in the next couple of weeks. I think we're going to have an answer if some changes occur with the Patriots and with some different NFL jobs, and there's no positive momentum with Brian, then he's probably returning. But I still think there's a good chance he leaves. I don't know how to rate as far as percentage chance that happens. I don't know, but I think there's a chance either way right now. But I am firm in my stance that there is still a significant chance he leaves. That's still on the table. I do believe that.
Well, and I do believe that as well. It does come down, in my opinion, it does come down to an NFL job. That's the only way he's leaving, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, you might be right. And that's what Cole says. Why are they waiting so long to fire Brian? Because they're not going to fire Brian. They're waiting for Brian to find another job. Thank you for the super chat, Cole.
And that comes down to it. Who in the past 20 years, who has Kurt Ferentz fired?
That's a great point. Great point.
Nobody in the past 20 years. Nobody. I mean, not even Greg Davis. I mean, have they been asked to resign? Sure, I get it. But to actually come out and fire somebody, it's never happened in 20 years. And with the NFL not making decisions yet on their aspect of it, that's why we have not heard from Kurt Ferentz yet.
Correct. I agree.
Now the whole goes to the NFL. Who are we getting as an offensive coordinator type scenario? I hear a lot of names.
Well, I gave a couple earlier. I told you to watch for Jim Svoboda from Tulane and Paul Christ from Wisconsin. Those are two names to watch for.
Correct. And I would like to put the Jim Svoboda name to bed. Of course, we all have our resources to why we think differently.
I'm not endorsing him as a candidate. I'm just telling you to watch for him as a candidate. I'm not saying I want him as a candidate or I think he's qualified. I'm saying don't be surprised if he's a candidate. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying, Corey. But with people that have inside information, that name is put to bed already.
Okay.
But we do have
I'm curious. So I'm just curious. Who is this that with inside information that's putting that to bed?
I will send you a DM on Twitter.
Okay. Well,
I don't want to release it because
that's fine. I'm just telling. I'm not going to argue with you on it, but
right. And we're not here to argue. Now there is a person that has been on staff for the past 6 months that the contract expired today. That will have a pretty good shot. That no name is, you have not mentioned it in your broadcast tonight. I think
we've talked about Bud Meyer.
Yeah, and I think that person's got a real good shot if Brian Ferentz goes to the NFL.
I do not.
Here's the deal, though. No matter who we get, it's been Kurt Ferentz's offense for the past 20 years. He's always had control of what his offensive coordinator does. He's always had control of all that aspect.
And you know this. You know this how?
Well, I mean, what have we done? Been exceptionally well in the past 20 years. I mean, everyone thought Greg Davis is.
Do I need to read? Do I read the numbers to you, Rusty?
Well, okay. You're
listen. You're supposed to be. I shouldn't have to read the numbers because Rusty's supposed to be trusty.
Okay, let's read the numbers here.
I can read you. You want me to read you the numbers? I'll find the numbers.
In the past 5 years, had a .689 win percentage. Okay. In Greg Davis's time at Iowa, he has a .60 win percentage.
What? Wait, okay. We're going to have to end this call because we're bringing up win percentage. Are you serious?
No. Hang on. I can bring up plenty more. Okay. Okay. Ken O'Keefe has a .596 win percentage. Okay?
Nobody cares. Listen, win percent. Stop bringing up win percentage. Win percentage. You're evaluating one side of the football by looking at the team's win percentage.
You want to look at points per game now?
Units that are competing on the football field every Saturday. That's the measuring stick.
You want to look at points per game now?
No, I don't want to look at points per game either because points per game is not a perfect formula. You have to weigh points per game. You have to weigh total offense. I can give you the numbers and I can give you the numbers in total offense.
Total offense production. Okay. We've averaged total offensive production. We've averaged 57th in the country under Brian Ferentz. 73rd under Greg Davis.
No. They haven't. Yeah. They have not averaged 57th under Brian Ferentz. That's inaccurate information.
How do you say that's inaccurate information?
It's not correct. That's how I say it. It's not correct. Listen.
Okay.
I've got the numbers. I can if I can show them. Let me find the numbers here for you, and we'll talk about them. How does that sound?
Yeah.
I'll give you the numbers. Here are the numbers and ranking in total offense by Brian Ferentz. Starting in 2017, 117 in the country. 92nd. Listen, hey, let me read this. Let me read the numbers. 2017, they were 117 in total offense. 2018, they were 92nd. 2019, 99th. 2020, 88th. 2021, 124th. 2022, 130th. That does not. How does that average out to be 57th?
Okay, what are you? Them figures, what are we averaging in? Okay, are we averaging in the amount of plays we get?
No. You just got done saying, Rusty.
Because hang on, we do game management.
No,
it's
Rusty.
Game management. When we average 15 to 20 plays less per game than everybody else, how are you gonna figure that numbers out?
Rusty, you just told me that in total offense, I was average ranking in total offense under Brian Ferentz was 57th. You just said that. We can rewind the tape. You just said that.
Okay, hang on. Total offense is not a great metric to utilize in determining the strength of the offense. Okay. We milk the clock and don't snap the ball within 20 seconds left of the play clock. 90% of the time. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
So we always let the clock go down. No matter what play we're playing, no matter how far behind we are, no matter how ahead we are. Right?
Right.
Okay. That's always been the case under Kurt Ferentz. Always. In the past 20 years, we've hardly ever snapped the ball with 20 seconds or more left on the play clock. So how can we compare total offense to this Iowa team compared to somebody like OU that snaps the ball with 25 seconds left. They're getting 2 plays to our 1. 2 plays to our 1 play. Of course they're going to have higher numbers. Absolutely, they should. They're getting 3 times as many plays as we are a game.
All right. I listen, Rusty,
Okay.
I appreciate you calling in. I appreciate you calling in, but I can't sit here. I'm already 35 minutes past when I said I was going to be off the
That's the
air.
problem for you. You don't want to hear the numbers because the numbers are out
You
there.
just oh my. Okay.
We're just talking that.
I can give you the numbers. Hold on a second. I'm going to give you the numbers in total offense. See, I know you don't like that, but you want numbers. Let me give you the numbers. No, hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Per game. I want points per game.
I don't listen. I don't want to have to mute you, Rusty. Let me share the data, and then you can refute it. If you want to have a debate, then you have to let the other person speak.
Okay.
Okay. Ken O'Keefe. This is ranking under Ken O'Keefe in each season he was here, right? Not counting 1999. I don't have data from 99. 2000, they were 104. 2001, 45th. 2002, 13th. 2003, 92nd. 2004, 104. 2005, 22nd. 2006, 27th, 2007, 109, 2008, 53rd, 2009, 89, 2010, 57, 2011, 76. That's Ken O'Keefe. Greg Davis, 2012, 117, 2013, 84th, 2014, 66th, 2015, 72nd. Greg Davis, 121st. Brian Ferentz, 2017, 117th in 2017, 2018, 92nd, 2019, 99th, 2020, 88th, 2021, 124th, 2022, 130th. Now, if you want to sit here and tell me the total offense isn't the perfect metric, I've never argued it's the perfect metric. We have had a former offensive coordinator, Iowa's former offensive coordinator in the 90s, Don Patterson, on this show time and time and time again, and he has said unequivocally that total offense and points per game combined are the way to measure it. Chuck Long was on the radio earlier in 2022 and said the perfect way or the best way to measure an offense's efficiency is through total offense. So if you're going to argue with Don Patterson and Chuck Long, you go right ahead, but I'm not going to do that.
Okay, let's go to points per game then. Because you just mentioned points per game. Okay,
it's more valid than bringing up wins and losses when you're evaluating an offensive coordinator. Absolutely, it's more valid, but you have to combine both.
Brian Ferentz,
you have to look at
hang
both.
On. Listen, Brian Ferentz says points per game 26.4. Greg Davis 25.9. Ken O'Keefe 26.9. 26.4 under Brian Ferentz. 25.9. Greg Davis, 26.9, Ken O'Keefe. Okay. We've increased almost 3 points per game from Ken O'Keefe's first year until this year, from 25.8 to 28.5. We tend to average 29.5 points per game in our 2 lost seasons. You take our 2 lost seasons, we average under Brian Ferentz 29.5 points per game. Okay. Versus our 24.7 points per game in our 6 lost seasons that we've had this year and a couple years ago.
So, this is why you can't just look at points per game. You wanted to bring up all these reasons why you can't look at total offense. I'll tell you why you can't just look at points per game. You go back and look at defensive points per game, and you measure the difference between what Phil Parker's units are producing with points in the last 5 to 10 years. I can guarantee you that the number of points and turnovers have went up as we've gone in time with Phil Parker. That's a fact.
No, and I totally agree with you on that.
So you can't give Brian Ferentz any credit for points scored by the defense. You see how ridiculous that is? You can't. You can't give him any points for. You can't give him credit for points that were scored by the defense. And points per game measures everything, not just points scored by the offense. It measures special teams. It measures everything. It's looking at score.
It's looking at the score of the entire game.
Correct.
And
And there's other ways to score points.
Okay, if we score 21 points on offense and 14 points on defense.
Rusty, do you realize that the Iowa defense outscored the Iowa offense on at least 3 occasions this season?
Okay, you did.
No, I'm asking you. Do you realize that?
I do realize that, but you're not looking back at what I said. When we were a 10-win team, how many offensive or how many defensive touchdowns did we have last year? How many defensive touchdowns did we have last year?
I don't know.
Not near as many as we did this year. I guarantee you that.
Well, we had the two the first game, right? We had 2 pick sixes by one guy, Riley Moss, first game of the season.
First game of the season, Riley Moss had 2 of them. Okay. And then after that, in the rest of the season, I think we had 3. So that's 5.
So are you here to argue? Let me just get I got to wrap this show up, Rusty. Are you here to argue that Brian Ferentz is...
Let's wrap it up. I'll send you some information on Twitter.
Okay. All right. Thank you for calling, Rusty. I'm not trying to argue, Rusty. I don't... I just don't know what was the point of the call. I'm more than happy. Obviously, I'm more than happy to engage in a friendly debate. But what's the point of the call? Are you defending? Sounds like you're just. I'm guessing his overall point in that, and I'm not ripping him, but his overall point in that phone call was to pound home the notion that this is Kirk's offense and it doesn't change regardless of who is the OC. And I don't believe that to be true. And even if you want to believe that to be true, you've only had 3 offensive coordinators during the Kirk Ferentz era. So if all of them are equally bad, you could assume that Kirk Ferentz just doesn't know how to hire OCs. One of them was his son, one of them was his buddy, and the other one was a stepping stone to his son. That's a valid argument to have. Again, I don't know what else to say other than I don't know how you can defend the Brian Ferentz off. I mean, I cannot believe that we're still having that discussion. Rusty, love you. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you supporting the show, but I couldn't disagree more. And I'd be happy to have you call in, maybe, have you call in when Don Patterson's on. We're going to have Don Patterson on in the coming days. Stay tuned for an announcement, a season wrap-up show. We kind of been holding off because I anticipated we'd have more news to talk about with Coach P. We'll have Coach Patterson on very soon and wrapping up the season. So, I mean, Rusty, you're more than welcome to call in when Don's on because Don he'll be happy to engage you, at least momentarily, but I would hope that you would respect the opinion of a seasoned head coach who happens to be the all-time winningest head coach of a Division I program and a former offensive coordinator who had much better offenses than anything Kirk Ferentz has dreamed of since his tenure began in '99. So anyways, it's kind of a weird way to end the show. I cannot believe that that's how we ended the show. But thank you to all of our callers. ZJ, I'm sorry I didn't get to your question. Do I think the Hawks defense was better than last year? I don't know about better. It will be good. Rick, can I see Deion Sanders' team breaking into the top 25? Potentially, but hard for me to project that they're going to do that based solely on transfer portal pickups and recruiting. I mean, he just got there. Give him some time. We'll see if he gets it done. D-Rock Irish, appreciate you being here, and thank you for following the show. Let's see here. Double Trouble Dad Squad. Corey, are you aware of anyone specifically in the portal that we are targeting? I've had conversations with Mark Rogers about this. No one that I'm going to go out and say, yes, they are targeting this person. I mentioned receiver from UTEP that Kelton Copeland started following on Twitter recently, but I'm not aware of any offer there. We'll see. We'll see if they're still active. We'll find that out here in the coming days, weeks as well. Lemansky, thank you for the super chat. Lemansky says, go Hawks. Thank you for the super chat, Lemansky. Much appreciated in your support and your donation, supporting the show. Thank you very much. And Erica as well. Thank you for the super chat. Why would Brian Ferentz want to stay at this point? I think he feels frustrated. You can tell by the last presser he has been in and by the last pressers he has been in and how he reacted to questions. Kelly says, what happened to the Crow kid from Ankeny? He's from Huxley, Kale Crow. He's still on the roster. He was a freshman last year. He's a tackle, big kid. Wish the best for him. Yeah, he's another guy they'll need to develop, and he's had a year in the program, or not quite a year. He got in there in the summer. But yeah, he'll be another project that hopefully he's coming along, and this spring will be big for him. Brian, who would be the OC? I think we talked about that earlier. Certainly rewind back, Brian, and we'll talk about that probably in the future as well. Brian says, too, with Brian Ferentz as the OC, honestly, will there be a positive change? Top 75 with Cade as quarterback? Top 75 is not great, but compared to what they have been, that'd be pretty good. I think if you're top 75 with Brian, I don't want to say satisfied. You shouldn't be satisfied with the top 75 offense. I would be surprised if they're top 75, even with Cade, if Brian's still there. I wouldn't be surprised if they get top 100. Top 75 might be a big jump to make, but we'll see. Erica says, more money for your patience, Corey. Thanks for a great show. Thank you, Erica. Hey, it was that extra 30 minutes. See, I got an extra super chat from Erica. Thank you, Erica. I do appreciate that. And like I say, honestly, to our last caller, I'm happy to have debates with you, and I don't agree with you, but that's the great thing about this show. I'm happy to take the phone calls, and I didn't want to hang up on him. I'm not going to hang up on a guy unless it starts going sour. I'm not going to hang up on people. I don't believe in that. Now, if it just went on and on and on, we had callers lined up behind him, that would have been different. But thank you to everybody that was a part of the show this evening. And of course, we're here each and every Tuesday over at Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football on YouTube, live with the one and only Mark Rogers at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So if you're new here, check out our other channel. We team up with Mark Rogers, the Voice of College Football, for shows every Tuesday at 4:30. All of these shows and all of our longer segments, including our post-game shows with Coach Gary Close, which are live after every game here on YouTube. Those shows will be podcasted. They are podcasted from the Hawkeye of the Storm on your favorite podcast platforms. Of course, a reminder that if you haven't subscribed, please do that. Please hit that like button. If you want to donate to the channel, there's PayPal, there's Venmo, there's Cash App. If you want to donate, one-time donation by credit card, you can do that as well. Rusty just sent me a message. Thank you, Rusty. Look at that when I get off the air. Donate to the channel by credit card by clicking the PayPal link, and there's a button there where you can donate by PayPal. If you want to sponsor the channel, any of the segments here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, including our post-game coverage, email me from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. That's from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at From the Hawkeye on Twitter and Instagram, From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. Please share this show out on social media. Click the share button here on YouTube. Share it to your favorite platforms. To become a premium subscriber, click the join button next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm here on YouTube as well. Shop Amazon with us. We've got a link in our description where you can support our channel by just making your daily purchases through Amazon, through our Amazon link. Find that link in our description. And From the Hawkeye of the Storm merchandise is available. Click on the link in the description for authentic From the Hawkeye of the Storm merch. All right, folks. Iowa postgame with Coach Gary Close coming up tomorrow after Iowa and Ohio State. We'll be back live tomorrow at approximately 3 o'clock following the conclusion of Hawkeyes and Buckeyes, which will be on Fox, featuring the one and only Gus Johnson, Jim Jackson, and the whole crew from Fox. So we'll look forward to that. Iowa looking to win its 5th straight game, this one on the road in Columbus. For Coach JT Stone, who was kind enough to join us earlier, and for all of our callers, thank you. I'm Corey Brada here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll talk to you tomorrow.